society should encourage women to have children by a certain age, and what you think women would be best off doing. So we're going to go the same order, start off with irrelevant with your intro, and we'll keep intros around like 2 minutes. Go ahead.
I don't think I'll need 2 minutes. For the most part, my position on this is that it's pretty case by case. In general, I think people, not just women, people are more happy with children for a variety of reasons. But that could be changing and stuff like that, and with how people want to maybe live their lives in a different way. And, it's case by case. So with women, I would say the same way. In general, it's probably make a lot of them a little bit more happy if they were to have kids, but like it's going to be case by case. I don't think we can make a general broad sweeping prescription for women to have children or even men to have children. Just got to figure out what they want and make that work.
Awesome. Andrew.
The answer is yes. The West faces a massive birth rate crisis, and our replacement rates are way under where they need to be, and they're going to continue to drop drastically. So my answer is overwhelmingly yes. Also, women are indeed happier with a family and children. They're happier married. I would absolutely prescribe that the state, if they're going to do any type of propaganda for the health and welfare of their people, should be trying to push a family values message and push all the incentive they can so that the people of the domestic United States can have more children and more marriages. And I think that should be the overarching message. I don't even think there's anything more important than that at the moment that we should be focusing on.
Awesome. Base FCZ.
I also mostly lean on yes. And yes, I do think women are happier with children. Think more anecdotally, I've always seen women be pretty excited, pretty happy to be around children. Even my personal experience, having a niece, being a substitute teacher, I know the joys of children. I think a lot of people look at the financial burden of them and they forget that children are just small people, and they're not just small people, but it's a temporary state. Eventually they're going to grow up to be big people. Like all of us here, we were children once. We can definitely help people. We can spread joy. We can be virtuous individuals. I think a lot of people really forget that, again, a child is a temporary state. They will grow up. They'll be their own person. And we kind of forget the effect that they can have on their parents. They can help their parents grow. They can help their parents be better people. And I think that we also forget that for a woman to come with a child, she needs a man. And if a man is a good man and he loves her and cares about her, he's going to help her in that relationship. So when you put everything together, I would say, yeah, if you're in a good relationship and you kind of understand what bringing children is all about, I think 100% you'll be happier. And I think society should push like having children, because again, that children become people. That's your whole populace. That's your whole civilization. So.
All right. Thank you. Kid Not Kid.
I think it's pretty clear that most women want to have kids. I don't think it's clear that that having children is going to produce a happier life. If we're going to use the term happier, you could say that it could probably produce a more meaningful life, but the meaning is it's going to carry with it a lot of stressors and a lot of things that you have to deal with, including paying for the child and having a support system that can take care of a child for their entire life. And some places have more means to do so than others. The United States has very little support for families. And it's not surprising that the happiness rates of parents are lower in the United States than other places. While keeping in mind this economic burden, it doesn't seem clear to me that that parents are actually happier than non-parents. But there are places where parents are happier.
Stop typing, Tom. Stop typing while people are doing their. What the fuck is wrong with you, man?
It's weird that you guys can hear that. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, we could hear it. Yes.
Yeah, it's in a couple places around the world, parents are happier than non-parents, and the reason why is because they have the support to actually have kids. And I think if we want to encourage people to have kids, to support our economy, and to make sure that people have better lives in the future, we should probably be investing in those support systems for people to have kids. If that's what you want to do, then that's how you do it.
Awesome. Thank you. Made by Jimbob.
You can call me Jimbob, so you don't have to say that every time. That goes for
Jimbob.
everyone if you want. Yeah, I'm with Andrew and the other guy up there. Not only birth rate is a problem, but the question of whether women are happier with children, I think they generally are. If we're looking at the overall time of their life, I would call that more of a fulfillment thing. I kind of agree with that distinction with the previous guy, that would be a distinction. Also brings up the question of like whether pursuing happiness itself is the most important thing. As parents, whether it's mother or father, it's not always the priority to be happy. And so I think in the question itself, we're going to start to see some of the problems that lead women into disastrous lives, into a future of Chelsea Handler-like existence, wine-stained teeth, 3 cats, loneliness, crying on Wednesdays. And we want to avoid that. And so I think the question of what it is to live a meaningful life is going to play into the happiness, or what we call happiness. That's it for me.
Awesome. And then Xena.
Oh, wait,
last.
sorry. Can I just get someone to walk? I'll let the other guy go, but can you please walk me through how to turn off my the notifications? Because I hear them, and I assume you guys do. The Discord's going bleep.
We don't hear them, but if you go to
Okay,
your
great.
settings,
Okay,
you go to
that's
screen
fine
mode.
then. That's
Yeah.
great then. Thanks. All right.
Okay. Xena, go ahead.
I think yes, our biological makeup kind of makes it to where women naturally, in most cases, want children and are happier and more fulfilled with children.
That's
We're
it?
wired that. We're
Oh.
genetically wired that way.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I'm only going to be moderating for the most part. I might have questions here and there, but I'm really just moderating. I'll be pretty liberal with interruptions so that the conversation can flow naturally, but if it's getting to be an impediment to the conversation, I'll be liberal with the mute button if people aren't listening when I jump in. So if I do start talking, please go ahead and stop so I can just keep control of things. Outside of that, we can go ahead and jump into the open conversation. Oh, one more thing. If anybody has like questions that they want to ask the panelists, you can send them to whatever streamer you're watching, and hopefully they'll send them to me, and then I will ask your questions later on in the panel. So yeah, go ahead.
Well, what are we supposed to be fighting about? We all agree about everything.
It doesn't sound like you do.
It seems like, it seems like a lot of us agree about this. There might be some disagreement in so one thing that I don't care that much for is the moral imperative that like women ought to be producing babies. If we're talking about like the what's good for the economy and what's good for like everyday well-being, sure. The economy needs people to work. That's how it operates. And if you don't have a surplus of people, then the economy is that's going to be a problem. But the ethical imperative is probably something that there might be some disagreement on.
Can I ask you a question then?
Sure. Yeah.
Is there an ethical is there an ethical imperative to not off yourself?
Is there an ethical imperative to not off yourself? No.
No. Okay, so you just don't care about human life.
No, not in a moral sense. No.
Okay,
Wait,
so
why?
if
Hold on.
if you don't care about
Yeah.
human life, why the fuck do we care about your opinion about what human life ought to do?
It doesn't matter if you care about my opinion.
Well, what is your opinion? Let's discuss. Maybe we can.
I
Change
care
our
about
mind.
my life, and I care about people around me doing good because that helps me live a fulfilling life. But if I'm going to walk up to someone and say, "You ought to be living your life in this way," I just wouldn't do that. No.
Right, so you just don't have a position, right? You're just neutral?
About what other people ought to do.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you're neutral about what they ought to do, then we actually ought not care about your opinion because you're neutral. So you're not a person who needs to be contended with. Your neutrality means I can do what I want because you're fucking neutral.
It seems like that's what you think you want to do, but
What can you do about it? You're neutral.
Wait,
What
I
can
mean,
you do about it? You're neutral. Whatever I decide.
Why should I care?
Whatever I
why should
decide the
care
ought
whether or
to
not like you
listen.
have
What
the
I'm
merit?
saying. Whatever I decide the ought imperative for society is, you just necessarily have to agree because you're neutral. Or you I guess don't have to agree, don't have to disagree, you're just neutral about it. So whatever ought I decide we ought to have, what are you going to say about it? You're just neutral. You don't have to be contended with.
I mean, if that's how you feel, but I don't think that there is. I don't think that there's a I don't think that there's any reason to tell any individual person how they ought to be living their life as long as
we have law.
Wait, that makes no sense.
Yeah,
Should
we have laws?
Wait, should we not tell people what they should do with their life?
Hold on. I have prescriptions.
Answer my question though. Should we ought not tell people what they should do with their life then?
I would tell people what I would think that they would want, that I would want them to do with their life.
Yeah, that's not my question.
I don't think
should
that
we ought not tell people what they should do with their life?
Should we ought not tell people what?
Yeah. No. Okay, so the answer is no. So we should tell people what they should do with their life then?
No.
No. So then again,
no, I don't
care. I don't care. There's nothing. Wait, I shouldn't tell them or I should tell them. Doesn't matter. So you don't have to be contended with.
I don't have
so
any. Okay, go ahead, really.
So let's say that there's an individual prescribing some idea that everybody in here disagrees with. Let's say that this person says that anything besides deer should be exterminated from the planet, including humans. And they're like gaining steam. Would you believe that? Like, could we make an argument against that? Should we not make an argument against that for, like, at the very least, the preservation of humanity?
I would make so like the thing that you're misunderstanding is that I have prescriptions for myself and how I would want to live my life, and my prescriptions are going to be based on that.
But past that, you don't.
Whether or not other people have children has nothing to do with me.
Yeah, ought you do those things that you think you should do with your life?
I will be doing the things that I think I should.
Yeah,
be doing
I know,
with
but
my life.
ought you do them? Should you do them?
There's no reason to say that I ought to do it, but I will.
Okay, so you're even neutral about the stuff you should do in your own life.
No,
just get that right.
No, you fundamentally misunderstand. No, you fundamentally misunderstand.
Well, why don't you enlighten me?
I will do the things that I want to do with my life. That doesn't mean that I ought to do it.
So ought you do them?
No.
No. Okay. So then,
wait a second.
Hang on. I'm almost done. So ought you not do them?
It's not about ought. It's whatever I want to do with my life.
Right. Okay. So there's no moral imperative. So why would anybody give a shit about what you have to say about anything if there's no moral imperative for you to ever do anything ever or anybody else?
I'm not here to argue about the moral imperative.
You brought up the moral imperative. Yeah. Literally, you were the one who brought it up.
I don't care about the moral imperative.
So you did bring up the moral imperative?
Yeah, he brought up the moral imperative
then you were
in the sense that he doesn't care about it, yeah.
Why would you bring it up if you're not here to argue it? So it's very strange. You said one of the things we can argue about is the moral imperative and how I don't think that there is one, or that there's a moral imperative for anything ever.
Which I would like to argue. Like, is there a moral imperative for women to do anything?
No, I don't believe in a moral imperative, but
for anyone, because I disagree fundamentally. I think we definitely have a responsibility.
That's fine if you disagree with that. That's fine. That's why I'm saying that there's probably going to be disagreement there.
Yeah,
I don't believe in a moral imperative, but I still have my prescriptions for how I think I would want other people to exist in the world, and that's it. But I don't think that there's any reason to think that like I am going to prescribe like the way that society should exist or how you should exist in society. It's fundamentally different than just thinking that like anything goes.
Well, like you can agree there's some like objective truths to the world, right? Like there are some things that are going to work better than others. Like for example, you need to put gasoline in a car to make it go. Like we can just agree that there's
I believe in I believe that there are facts about
let's
the world.
bring it down to this one, right? We can agree that if you do a bunch of drugs, it's probably going to damage your body, right?
Well, okay, so like look, what I said in my intro is fundamentally consistent with this, where if it is the case that you want a functioning economy, you're going to need to increase the birth rates. That does not mean that I care about the morality about whether or not people actually reproduce. If you care about a functioning economy, yes, you're going to need more people to reproduce.
So why do you care about a functioning economy but not like the people like existing as a moral agent in society?
Because I do better if there's a functioning economy.
Oh,
I can
okay.
survive.
So,
basically,
so
you're just
let me
really
ask
selfish,
you:
honestly.
are you saying then that you don't give a shit about anything except yourself?
I would say the same. I think everyone believes that. Yeah.
That
can't
you
be the
think?
case,
Wait,
though.
wait,
I
wait,
think
wait.
on a
Hang on. I can't
fundamental
let that
level, yeah.
pass. You think that everybody doesn't give a shit about anything except themselves? Really? That's your position?
I think they care, but the things that they care about is fundamentally going to be around what is best for their well-being, including
Maybe
if
something.
other people are happy, that's fundamentally good for your well-being, which is
So
why
you don't
people
think
want-
that people
yeah.
do sacrifices all the time for other people at the great expense to themselves, even though they gain nothing
do,
from
but
it?
they get something out of it. They always get
What do
something
they get out of it?
satisfaction, first and foremost.
So you're
You feel satisfied. You have a
so-
desire to help other people.
But if it's
What if-
sacrificial,
Yeah.
But if you help
that's
someone,
what you
but it's a
desire to
sacrifice.
do. By
No, no,
definition,
no.
it's still something that you desire to do.
I think
Well,
isn't this the
doing
concept
something
of
in-
psychological egoism? Isn't that what this is?
You could
The
say
idea
that.
that you can't make a decision that you don't want to do because it's anything that you will yourself to do is something.
Well, it's
that you
just
want to do.
nihilism. It's just nihilism.
It's not
I
nihilism.
don't even think
No,
that works
it's
functionally.
not nihil. It's a whole thought process that is its own thing. But generally speaking, I think technically it is factually true. Everything that we are doing, we do for a reason. Like if you sacrifice yourself, you're doing it because you are logistically going, my life is not worth this outcome. I choose to therefore sacrifice myself. It is a choice that you are actively making. So technically it is true. However, like I think some people would stray away from the
My
idea
chat's
that
demanding to know from you, sir. Do you have a single mom?
No,
No, you weren't raised by a single mom.
no, I was not.
Okay, they just wanted to know.
No,
But
I was raised by my mother and my stepfather, who ended up passing away around the time that I turned 18.
Okay, gotcha.
But yes, I had a nuclear
You
family,
take the,
so to
do you
speak.
take the same approach with law and like the justice system that we ought? There's no ought in.
I do want to say,
following-
wait, real quick. I do want to say, I don't want to derail this into like meta ethics. I'm interested in talking about these things, but when it comes fundamentally to like what women should be doing, or what women want to be doing, or what's going to make women happy, we can still focus on those particular things. I mean, we can talk about the ethics around that if you want to, but I want to make sure that
I want to know why
that
they
is
have
pretty focused around that. Yeah.
Why don't they have any moral imperative to reproduce? If men have a moral imperative to keep society functioning, say protecting them, say producing them, and making
He doesn't
stuff,
believe that they
why
do.
No, I don't believe that
So
they do.
men don't. So okay,
No.
that's weird. I guess what we would have to do then is convince you that we do have a moral imperative. Because
You can't convince him. He's neutral. There's no, but
No,
there's
I don't
actually
believe in a
the
moral
good.
imperative,
The
so
good
yeah.
news is that not only do you not have to convince him, you don't not have to convince him because he doesn't believe in anything, so who gives a shit?
So if someone wrongs you, do you and you want justice? You know that's already self-refuting to want to even pursue justice, right? If someone steals your
Not
stuff
having
and
a
hurts
no,
you-
wait. So not having a moral imperative doesn't mean that I don't desire things. That doesn't mean that I don't want things to. It doesn't mean that I can't have prescriptions about society.
prescriptions
Yes, yeah.
like
Oh,
ought,
so-
like an ought.
Like things that I want to happen for society that I think would be good and beneficial for me.
So if someone wrongs you, hurts you, and steals your stuff, and it's illegal, would you argue that there ought be a system that puts them or punishes them, or puts them in jail, restores your
Yes,
stuff?
Yes, I would want a system so that that kind of thing doesn't happen to me.
So what
Would
about
want
in a
one.
system where somebody were to, I don't know, dig up a dead body and have sex with it? Are you against that because it doesn't actually affect you negatively in some way?
I don't give a shit about that.
I didn't think you did, right? Of course
Yeah,
not.
so
Like,
so
why
you
would
only
you?
care
Who
about
cares
yourself
about
and
stuff like
Yeah,
that?
why would I?
Why would you debate? What are you getting out of this?
why debate?
Yeah.
What would you want? What would you want to happen tonight?
But I still
They hear
have.
yourself
I don't.
talk?
Okay, I don't know why you guys are missing the point. I still have
There is
prescriptions
no
about
point.
society.
Mhm.
I still want to live in a functioning
Mhm.
economy. I still want people
Yeah.
around me to have beneficial lives.
Look, I agree
So
with you
I
that
have
you
a
have
question.
prescriptions for society, but why ought we follow those prescriptions for your society?
It's either if you also believe in a functioning economy, then we can talk about what would be imperative for a functioning economy.
Yeah, but even if
And-
we were to agree on what made a functioning economy, and you
Sure.
were to be 100% right, and it was not even something which was up for dispute, why should anybody else follow it if you yourself don't think they
Wait,
should?
Okay, if you're not convinced by if you also believe in a functioning economy, and I'm making a valid argument for a functioning economy and what would make a functioning economy, you're telling me that you wouldn't listen to me because there's no moral imperative behind it.
not what
It's
I
that
said.
you're not
No, what-
interested. You're not
what
What if the
interested in
function?
facts
No,
of the
no.
matter.
He's saying, what if the functioning economy was built around some sort of crypto coin that rewards people who steal and hurt people? You couldn't have any argument against that. If
Yes,
as
I
long
could.
as it
Yeah,
produced-
no, that would not be beneficial for me. I do
What
not
if-
want to live in a
what if
society
benefit-
where people
What if
are.
How do you know?
it's beneficial for you? What if we could
do you mean?
demonstrate
How do you know?
100% that is beneficial to you, specifically to you, at the expense of hundreds or thousands of others? Fuck them, right?
But no,
If
I
it
don't want to
was.
live in a society like that.
Well,
but then
what
you're-
if it was? Well, wait a second. Why not? It's beneficial to you.
You just said it was beneficial.
But it's not beneficial to me if other people around me are being harmed at my expense. I still have
It
like.
sounds like it's highly beneficial to you.
No, he has empathy. Like, what,
Yeah,
what
like,
the hell?
this doesn't mean
he
that I
cares
don't
about
have
other
these
people.
like-
The idea that he doesn't care about other
Why?
people, like, I don't know where you guys are getting. This isn't
No, but
really
he
that
said it,
hard.
but why? Why
He
does he
just
care
said
about
he
other
doesn't
people
care.
though?
Because it makes him feel bad.
But that
Correct?
Yes, obviously.
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
So
You
if
care about
It's
other
really
people
not
because-
rocket science. I don't
but
understand.
irrelevant.
Why we're,
It is irrelevant. That's actually good that you brought that up. Let's assume for a second that does make him feel bad, and so he chooses not to do it. If somebody else took his same morality and applied that, and those same things didn't make them feel bad, they should, at the other people's expenses, follow their own whims and wishes, right?
Well, good
Got a
thing for
point, 'cause
me.
there's no
Everyone else
standard
seems
to
to have
follow.
empathy too. That seems to be something that like
no,
everyone.
not
actually
everybody
does
has
have
empathy.
He's
That's
right.
ridiculous.
Exactly. You got sociopaths, psychopaths.
empathy is just feeling.
The-
It doesn't
the
tell us
amount-
what actions we should do.
Precisely. You could have empathy for a thief.
Wait, you
Should I
think
also
that
have
I'm
empathy?
indifferent to-
You're
wait,
more-
you think that I'm indifferent to people that don't have empathy?
No, I'm
Empathy is
asking. Like,
not
what,
the
what we're saying is
determining
there's no
factor.
standard to have empathy. Like just because you relate to someone or understand them doesn't mean there's a standard of what you should or shouldn't do or what's functional or not functional. Like what difference does it make if you have empathy? The question is, what should you do?
makes all the
like, in
difference. What do you
society or
mean?
morality or
It
whatever.
doesn't give you any duties. Empathy gives
No,
you
listen.
zero duties.
Yeah. If you, the whole reason why we have these moral systems in the first place is because we
Moral
are focused
system.
on the things that we value, things that make us feel good. On
What
the
moral
things that,
system?
like,
But
yes,
That's
we do
literal
have-
untrue.
Yes,
True,
we
though.
do have empathy. That happens to be.
Yeah,
a
but you just said
fundamental
that the
part
reason
of-
that we
of
have these
human beings.
moral systems is because people want them based on their whims.
Yeah,
Sorry,
it really
repeat
is,
that?
man.
You just said that we have moral systems because people want them based on their whims.
They would have to discard their empathy so long as it was in contrast with something they wanted that suited them.
Right.
Yeah, so. Like
Yeah.
I said, this is a whole meta ethic thing. I don't know if you guys want.
No,
to,
this is just regular ethics. We haven't even gotten to meta
It's
yet.
just normative.
This is meta ethics.
No, this is normative.
It branches down to a meta-ethical problem.
Yeah, but so then it's
everything
not
does.
meta ethics yet. Got it. So it's just normative. So anyway, back to the conversation.
Oh, you're
It's
You're
It's
talking.
going to lead to a meta-ethical discussion,
It's
naturally.
not meta ethics. So he was incorrect.
Wait,
right?
so is it the case that you want to have a meta-ethical discussion instead of the topic of the panel?
Well, the topic of the panel, I
Well,
don't
I
even
do-
understand how you can engage in it if you don't have any oughts or any what you should do's or anything
And
like
it's
this.
a surprise that I'm already engaging in it, that I already had prescriptions at the beginning of the panel.
I-
Wait,
the panel-
hold on. Do you
don't
disagree
have
with
a-
any of the prescriptions that I had at the beginning of the panel?
You didn't give a prescription.
Yes, I did.
What was the
Yeah,
prescription?
no, his prescription is wanting a functioning
Pragmatic.
He
economy.
can talk. What's your prescription?
My prescription is I want a
No,
functioning economy.
I want. So is your prescription that I should do what you want?
If you also agree that you want a functioning economy, then you would have to judge on the basis of that. If
Okay,
you
well,
can't
my
relate to
prescription
anything-
is that everybody who believes
if you
like
can't
you gets
relate
put
to
in
anything
prison.
unless it relates to a moral imperative, then you just don't care about the facts, do you?
What are you talking about? If I'm going to give
If
an
I say
I-
that I
you
want a
say.
functioning economy and this is how it works, and you can agree with that, are you telling me that you won't listen until I attach it to a moral system? Are you serious?
what you could well, of course not. What you consider a functioning economy can work a zillion different ways. The Aztecs can have a functional economy.
Okay, you're being like needless.
perhaps-
Do you disagree
No,
with
no.
any of the
Yes, I
prescriptions
just
that I made? Because I
disagreed.
did give.
What is the prescription? You just said I want what now?
I want a functioning economy and the way that you have a functioning economy in our system, where we do care about the people around us, is an increasing birth rate.
And how's the
Do you- wait,
economy?
hold on.
How's the
Do you
economy
agree with that?
improving?
Hold on.
How's the
Do you
econ-
agree with that?
No,
You don't agree with that.
No. How's the
Okay,
economy
rewind.
improving going to increase the birth rate?
Oh my
I
god.
don't think that's what he
I don't
said.
think you're. I
The
don't
other
even
way
think you're
around.
listening.
Yeah, it was the other way around.
I don't even
you'll
think you're
agree with
listening.
what he said.
Birth rate
Oh.
will help the economy. Higher birth
Correct.
rates will help the economy because you'll have more workers.
Okay, so the birth rate. So what are you going to do
Higher
about
birth rate
so
helps
what are you
the
gonna do
economy.
about the birth rate then?
Sorry.
What do you want to do about the birth rate then?
Wait. So you do agree with me,
We
right?
would need to encourage women to have children.
About what?
I don't even think you're listening at this point.
Yeah, what are you asking if I agree with specifically?
The first point, that an increasing birth rate will benefit a functioning economy.
Likely.
Likely, yes.
Mm-hmm. Not always, but likely. Anyway, so how do you,
Sure,
let's
sure,
get to the part where we increase the birth rate, like the topic of the panel. How do you
Yeah,
want to do that?
Okay, so I gave my whole intro.
Mhm.
In my intro, what my prescriptions are is increasing social welfare so that people can afford to have children.
Can I hit
And
the buzzer and ask why don't we increase the functioning relationships between men and women so they work together? If they were working together, wouldn't that
do
already?
that. It's not
walk
like
and
I'm not
chew
saying
gum
that
at
this
the
is
same
like
time.
this is going to solve every single problem, but it's going to help a lot of the problems around that, including relationships between a husband and a wife who want to have children.
Mhm.
okay,
So like you can also talk about like the relationship between men and women and how solving some of the problems that are happening between men and women right now with like their ideological differences.
well, I have an easier
Getting
question.
over these is going to
It's
help increase the birth rate as well.
just kind of moves with your logic. So you think that increasing welfare is going to increase the birth rate? Can you actually demonstrate that an increase in welfare is going to increase the birth rate? That's one. And then secondly, why wouldn't you outlaw abortion knowing that that's going to drastically increase the birth rate for your functional economy? Or does that temper some
because-
other ideological value that you have?
Okay, so one, because a lot of people aren't having kids because they can't afford it. And if you can't afford having kids, you're going to be miserable while having kids. If you
And
want a
if
society,
that's-
wait, hold on. Let me finish what I'm saying.
That's not even true.
Wait, hold on. If you want
Why
to
do
live
the
in a
poorest
system-
people
wait,
have the most kids?
Why,
then,
wait,
stupid?
why can't you let me
Why
finish?
do the poorest people
Why
have
you-
the most
Why won't
kids?
you let me finish? Why won't you let me finish my point?
Because you, first of all,
Wait,
before you go
why?
on a
Wait,
diatribe,
wait.
I just want you to answer that question. You said that we need to increase social welfare because most people can't afford to have kids. That's why they're not. Then why are the poorest people the ones who have the most kids? Can you answer that?
I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, I didn't think he did.
Wait. Why? Wait. Do I have? Hold on.
Wait, I can actually answer that question. Why
Yeah,
the
go
poorest
ahead.
people
Yeah,
have the
I
most
think
kids? They have the least
yeah.
access to contraception. They have the least access to other activities and things like that. And they have the least
Yeah,
access to sexual education to know what sex is like that would actually prevent their other party from having sex. My roommate's brother literally thought having sex standing up would prevent him from getting his girlfriend pregnant.
You don't think that
Like
that
there's, and
Okay, I
he
mean-
absolutely grew up in an economically disenfranchised position. So like, yeah, the idea, like, it's not a mystery why a lot of these people are not having,
why they are is very
excuse me,
easy.
why they are having.
What about the tie-in? So you're talking about contraception, condoms, things like this. You have the expectation that you
education.
actually want a reasonable person to believe that even though it's mandatory for almost every human being in the United States to go through public school, and they do, that they're not learning sex education at a young age, which they are. Why is it that you
And
don't think it's a much more likely explanation that the poorest demographics in the United States also happen to be the most religious, and the most religious people happen to have the most amount of kids? Why wouldn't that be a much more reasonable answer to look at rather than every human being who's publicly mandated to actually go through the programs of sex education? And the poorest demographics in the United States are the most heavily funded for free abortions, for free contraception, for free condoms, for free fucking everything. So I don't even know how you can make the argument.
Just because a lot of people don't understand where the fuck to go to get that shit. If I ask many of my neighbors where the fuck to go to get a condom, they have no fucking clue. They're
Your
thinking like,
neighbors
oh, maybe
go to the store to get a condom, huh?
Yes, yeah, there is. Hold on.
What are your neighbors like?
Hold on.
What?
Hold on, let Billy finish.
Hold
Hold
on.
on, hold on,
Get a
hold on.
donut.
Go, but I do
History,
have
where do
to
you
I
ask-
don't know where to get a coffee.
Okay,
Where
let
are
Billy
these
finish.
neighbors?
Where do you get
Who
a
are these
coffee?
neighbors?
Okay, I do.
Okay. So
Hold on,
here's
hold on,
the issue.
Face, hold on, let Ray finish
Here's the
what he's
issue.
saying.
Here's the issue. Okay, at this age, yes, I'm referring to like when they're children, when a lot of these pregnancies are
Children getting
happening.
Can I
condoms?
hit the buzzer? Can I hit the
Yes,
buzzer?
like
Yeah, hit the
16. No,
buzzer.
you cannot.
No,
you
let
cannot.
Ray
Hit the
finish.
buzzer.
No,
Okay,
you
let
cannot.
me finish
Okay,
when you
when you're
finish
like
the buzzer.
16 years old and you have no fucking clue what the hell sex is because you think literally having sex standing up means your girlfriend isn't going to get pregnant. Yeah, you're not really like, oh, I don't really know how this works. I don't even know how to put it on. I don't know where to buy one. I don't know where half of this shit. A lot of them don't. A lot of them are also
keeps going down. Teen pregnancy keeps going down because none of the teens know where to get birth control.
You're talking right now. So
it's crazy that you're making
these issues. I also agree with the idea that there is a religious element to a lot of these these groups that does factor into this. Absolutely, I won't deny that. However, the idea that sexual education and access to contraceptions and even knowledge of how to acquire and also how to use contraception is not something that these communities are very, very well versed in. Plan B, not really a great. People don't know how long. Let's see, actually, how many people in here know how long after sex you can take Plan B?
So
Pretty sure it's 48
I just want to make sure I got this right. Okay, so I'm going to clarify. I'll let you finish. Okay, you think that even though teenage pregnancy, which has been going down, is going down because the teenagers don't know how to access or use birth control, you think that that's a big-brained argument, sir?
It was, you asked, that's two different statements. You asked about teenagers versus poor people. Which one am I answering?
Yeah,
teenagers or poor people?
No, I'm just focusing
I'm referring
on this.
to poor teenagers when I was talking about the specific instance,
Their
not
birth-
teenagers in general.
Their
No, that's
pregnancies are going down
teenagers
too.
in general.
Their pregnancies are going
Yes,
down too. Even poor teenagers' pregnancies are going down.
Poor teenagers in general, do they not have a disproportionate rate of pregnancy?
Yeah, but that was my initial argument to you when you said that you wanted to raise social welfare.
Your initial argument was whether or not, why do poor people have higher rates of pregnancy
and it's due to
or have more
religiosity,
kids?
as I demonstrated.
It's not just due to religiosity.
Well,
I agree.
It must be
it's a
because
factor.
the pregnancy rates for that
agree.
demographic is going way down. Unplanned, and it has been going way down unplanned for an awful long time. So clearly they know about contraception and condoms since it's mandatory that they learned about those things inside of school. However, interestingly enough, you find that the demographic of the most religious continues to have the most amount of children. Now, I'm no rocket scientist, but I think we could put 2 and 2 together here.
To be fair, you guys are just saying that the poorest people still have the most children.
Correct.
Which would go against what.
Yeah, you're just arguing about why they have the most children.
At the end of the day, the poor people are still reproducing the most.
Yes, but that's my initial point to the gentleman who says that he wants to increase social welfare.
Yeah,
which
exactly. You're right.
Disproportionately get, and yet the poor are already having the most amount of children. How do you get the middle class and the rest of the nation to have a bunch of kids? They're the ones who know all about family planning and all this other stuff, right? How do you get them to do that?
Hold on. If it's wealthier people that know about family planning, because we know that about like economic illiteracy with poor people. If it is that the wealthier people do know about family planning, then it could be the case that they're looking at the whole picture and they're like, we can't fucking afford this.
Or they're looking at the whole picture and they're focusing on materialism because of the disproportionate rate that you find of people in the same socio-income class, even in the middle class, the difference in the religious who have children and the non-religious who have children. The religious are still having children. The non-religious are having less and less of them. So if you look at that demographic, you can see one of them is rejecting materialism, even though they're making the same amount of money as the other, and the other is not.
Wait, so you do disagree then that there are tons of people that are not having children because they just can't afford it? You don't think that factors in at all?
I'm sure that could be a factor, but it doesn't seem to be the factor.
Yeah, I don't think it would be the most significant factor at all.
Wait, you don't think it's significant? You don't think it's significant?
See, but that's kind of the problem.
Culture and tradition would be more significant than that.
Yeah, but wouldn't the middle class people be in the best or in a much better position to have children than the lower economic poor people?
And they still aren't.
Exactly, right? So then it can't be the economy if that's the case.
Wait, no.
Unless they psych themselves out of it.
Yes.
No, because of the economic illiteracy around having children when you're
except that the religious.
It's also the case.
The religious and that socioeconomic.
You're much happier when you're a parent. You're much happier.
Just to be clear as well, based on the information that I've seen, the two major reasons why people choose to not have kids is because of 1, medical reasons, and 2, financial.
That's
so we
the
can
one of
understand medically.
And the biggest burden for people, why a lot of people in the United States are not happy as parents, is because of that financial.
It's hard.
this-
Yeah, it's
but
hard
then-
to
but then
provide
this is
a
where-
stable household for a child. It's not
Hold
easy to
on.
do in America.
But this is where it goes back to what I said at the top, right? Like having a child is a temporary state. Eventually, the child will be like we are, adults who are self-sufficient and can do whatever we want to do, get our own job. So why would we not have kids when, again, that is a temporary state where they will become a productive member of society?
Because it
in
costs
the
a lot of
future?
money.
So,
So do you think-
okay,
Yeah,
so
like,
then
it's
so
something
then
around like the 18 years of raising this child, it costs like upwards of like 300.
yeah, but we have to
$400,000.
untangle. We have to untangle
That's a lot
these
of fucking money,
these
dude.
two things, because it can't
Okay.
be that the poor have the most kids because they don't have money, and then the middle class don't have as many kids because they don't have enough money. You have to untangle this, because that doesn't make any sense.
But
So
It does.
poor
You
are out here
can-
taking
if we
loans
start-
and getting
hang on,
credit
let
card
me
debt. What are you
finish,
talking
man.
about?
If we start with contraception, I think we've already demonstrated it can't be the contraception, okay? Because they all know about contraception, and teenage pregnancy has been drastically dropping, and it's going to continue to drastically drop because they do know about contraception and birth control and all these other machinations which are out there in order to prevent pregnancy. Okay. However, they're still having children. I think that this is due to materialism. They are less inclined to be materialistic because they don't have as much. Whereas the middle class, more inclined to be materialistic, less inclined to reject materialism, which is why you see the religious in the middle class sector who still have a lot of children because they're rejecting materialism. So I think that the answer here is what it always is, which is a religious grounding. That seems to be what makes people have the most kids.
I think that that's probably a factor. I think that that's probably a factor. That we have a lot of ideas about like what it means deep down to like have a child and produce a family, and this is something that is very, very strong and absolutely with the poor who don't have that much, who don't have like a lot of things that can make them happy. Yeah, I agree with that.
Well, then I don't think we're in any disagreement. My preference, just like your preference, is that I want to
like
see
I
the
said,
birth.
it's a
Hang on.
factor. I don't
Let me
think that this
finish.
is,
Let me
like, the
finish.
largest reason.
I'm almost done. My preference, like your preference, I want lots of little babies so that we can have a nice, healthy, booming economy. So I think that the federal government should push more normative Christian ethics because it seems like the Christians like to have those babies. And the non-Christians don't seem to like to have those babies, which is going to create an economic shortfall, which would be bad for you personally. So you should probably be against it.
Wait, so you don't care about the happiness of parents? You just want more
Well,
parents?
let's talk about the happiness of parents. If you're married and have children, do you think that you're more likely to be happy or less likely to be happy than those who are unmarried with no children?
It's
You're more likely to
interesting
be
that
you're more likely to be happy to be married when you have kids. Yeah.
Then
But
then there's nothing to argue
having
with
kids,
there.
Having kids can like fundamentally impact the relationship in your marriage, and the divorce rate is already like above like 50%. Like, and then
Yes.
having kids makes it worse.
but
Especially,
you can't
especially
literally
if you
blame
can
the
afford
kids,
having
though.
kids. Especially if you can afford having kids. So if you want these families to stay together, if you want people to be happy parents, then you are going to have to subsidize these parents.
Oh, I don't think so, considering that the Christian parents divorce at a much lower rate than the non-Christian parents do. So your argument for divorce
So
seems
Christians
like
just don't care about their
it seems like the prescription again seems to lean
No,
towards the
no, no, no.
religious to mitigate this problem. Yes, yes.
No, you have
Then why
tunnel
is
vision.
it?
No,
Then
you
why
have tunnel vision.
then why are the religious divorcing less than the non-religious, sir? If it's not the religion,
It doesn't matter because their happiness when it comes to being a parent
it's still
is
higher.
low.
No,
It's
it's
low.
high. The Christian's happiness is higher than the secularist happiness.
It's the lowest happiness when it comes to parenting out of any other fucking industrialized country. Like,
Okay.
no.
Well,
But
based on what?
inside of
Like,
this
what is-
industrialist country where all of us are in it together, the Christians inside of this country are still happier than the not Christians inside of this country.
Yeah, but they're still getting into immense debt to be parents, which is it's crazy that you just want to say, oh, well, just become Christians and then you don't have to worry about this financial debt. Are you serious?
Well, that's interesting because it seems to be the rejection of materialism, which is a Christian teaching that leads to the middle class having the children to begin with.
No.
See,
Isn't it interesting? Problem that I have.
Hang on. Isn't it interesting? Stop. Let me finish. I just let you finish your argument. Let me finish mine. I'm almost done.
Vision.
Well, I do have tunnel vision because I'm right. So back to where I was at. try to understand that when you're talking about materialism, especially, you can see even among the middle class that the people who have the most amount of nest eggs and things like this, who are less likely to spend frivolously, thus more likely to keep the most amount of their money, are, you guessed it, parents, people with children. They're the most likely to also get better paying jobs. They're the most likely to be happier. They're the most likely for all these things. And if they're Christians, their happiness index is even higher and their likelihood of divorce is lower. So it sure seems like religion seems to be the kind of key that ties all these threads together, unless you can give me a single thing that ties into all of these things like that does.
Well, so as long as they're Christian, it doesn't matter if they're in.
That's not my question. Can you give me anything else besides that doesn't tie all these together?
That's the conclusion, is that it doesn't really matter about the financial debt, which is the largest reason why parents are in the United States less happy than non-parents. Is that financial
you're saying,
burden?
Yes, I know, but
religious
hold on,
it does help. I agree with that.
But could you admit there's tons of very wealthy parents that don't have the Christian ethical system, and that actually puts a stress on the family, and because they have a ton of money, like it's almost like too much. You're kind of leaving that out of the influence. So what Andrew's saying, and I agree with, is that
happier than non-Christians.
The thing that actually establishes happiness regardless of income or circumstance in our paradigm would be your belief structure. That if even in the worst case scenario, your faith and your practice could actually overcome whatever circumstances you're in. Whereas in the secular world, you really can't pin it to finance alone as the cause, because people overcome finance. You can't put it, people have the most families and they're poor. Well, it turns out that those poor families a lot of time are also religious, like Andrew said. And so I think you're trying to pin it on.
But they're also, wait, hold on. They're also the least happy.
Who's the least happy?
But the lower class, the middle class, and the upper class, the parents that are lower class are less happy as parents than the middle and upper class.
Yes, but but you're smuggling in an important point. You're smuggling in something important, that the happiness threshold is very minute between the two.
I don't think so. Something like
then pull it up.
Pull it up. Percentage points?
Yeah, 6 percentage points. It's pretty minute when you consider the fact that your whole argument is that we need more materialistic policies in order to deal with this problem, and yet the mitigation factor, which would be materialism, is 6% between the two groups. That's it's pretty insane, man.
But not including the relationship to the people that don't have kids.
Yes, even in relationship to the people who don't have kids. Now you have other factors which contribute to the happiness too, especially socioeconomic, and they're still less happy if they're not religious and they're poor. I've already brought this up and tied all of it together for you in a nice package with a fluffy bow.
Okay, untie that bow. Let me see inside of this package. You think that the more money you have to raise a kid, you are going to be happier, right?
Well, wouldn't that follow?
I think that it will mitigate.
Wait, can you not agree with that?
I think it'll mitigate some of the unhappiness factors to a small degree. Yes.
Really, a small degree.
And above the threshold,
the stats seem to show a small degree.
What makes it a small degree when that's one of the main factors in which makes people
because it's not the main factor.
When surveyed,
it's only a 6%. No, it's not in surveys. It's 6%.
Yeah, when surveyed amongst people who are not having kids, the reasons why, the two main reasons are medical reasons and financial. Those are the top two reasons.
Those are the thing, though, right? Because they're good reasons. Number one.
But they're choosing not to as a result of doing it, though.
Yeah, but the question is how much isn't like their anxiety around the topic versus like literally they don't have the funds to do so. Like it's still a little loose here, because one thing that we have to consider is the fact that if people are upper class, why don't they have the biggest families since they don't have the burden of finances to begin with? Why do they have the smallest families?
If you want my response to that, number one is because they value some of the individuals who have a lot of money like to value specific like dynasty like things. They don't want to have like 50 people, at least in America. In like different countries, I think in the Middle East, you'll see massive, in South America, you'll see massive fucking families of
so you just
people,
refuted your
right,
own point.
Shit like that.
You refuted your own point.
Hold on. So I love it how you interrupt. Are you going to let me finish?
Hold on, let us finish.
We're talking about America, are we not? Because if we're talking about other countries, right, as previously brought up, American married people are not as happy as several other industrialized countries, of which obviously Christianity can't be the answer, because in these other industrialized countries, they're not primarily Christian. So I don't know why you're talking. Nonetheless, move on. We're talking about in America, these
Which
high
ones?
wage.
Which ones are primarily?
That's crazy. Just
Hold
allow
on.
me.
You guys gotta let him finish.
Allow me to talk. Okay. So these high earning countries, or in America, these high earning people, they're going to be concerned with having only a couple of people, as their children, so that they can focus on them for going to various different colleges and shit like that, because that's a part of our culture. We're not like culturally, in my opinion, this is a bad thing personally, that we don't have as much of a culture around keeping our kids with our family for prolonged periods of time and building up familial wealth. One of the things that I critique American culture for the most is that we don't adopt some of the systems that I see primarily in the Middle East and in South America, where you have these like 20-bedroom family homes that people will stay until they're like 35, so they stay with their family.
That, right?
And shit. Yes, I think we should. I genuinely think they should.
What do you think the distinction is in the culture of
Islam?
a place
They
like
love Islam. Loves it.
religion?
Maybe Islam is the answer, bro. No, if we're being honest, it's genuinely a lack of education. It's
you can't say it's the case for the more wealthier people, though. Lack of education. They have the most.
No. I'm not talking specifically. I'm talking in this instance about American culture. Right.
Okay.
I think American culture is this idea that we want to be free. We want to be independent at 18. This is very ingrained in American culture. This idea that, yes, that individualism. Bullshit. Okay. I think the idea of like us when we're growing up, we should be taking the people that we care about the most. We should be building with them. In this case, I think one of the base things is family, right? I'm an atheist, but I still believe this, right? That or agnostic, I should say, that we should be building with our family and making that familial unit work. Not even if you just care about money, this is a superior idea, let alone if you care about like building community and looking out for the social welfare of your family. I think this is like a better idea.
So
in American culture,
can I ask you just a quick question? Then I'll be quiet. I just want clarification on this one thing.
And then we're going to go to base.
Irrelevant. Which institution, if I asked you to point to an institution where you think that the primary edicts of that institution was to focus on family values and focus on moral values and focus on teaching that you are not allowed to break your family up and that you must work on your family problems and things like this. Are there any government institutions you can point to that do that?
That focus on like familial issues and keeping your family together?
No, not just keeping your family together, but also give you the values to stay with your family and also
maybe
provide you with an area for community for those people.
Maybe marriage counselors?
Well, that's private time.
Marriage counselors don't give you a community. They don't give you a community.
What do you mean? Give you like people to be around?
Yeah, people who have the same shared values and focus on family, which is what you want. Can you name anything besides the church? Anything?
Yeah, so marriage counselors, to my knowledge, also do try and push people towards interacting with other married couples that might be having a more successful or less successful relationship with them, to be able to establish a community if they find that the community is lacking.
Yeah,
you're asking specifically for government organizations. That's what you're asking for.
Yeah, but if you want to
like make the statement of all institutions, I'll agree that churches are like with at least where I grew up, there was a large Christian and Islamic presence in the area that did provide like youth programs and things like that. But also like if you're talking about just family, then yeah, churches. But if you're talking about like community in general, I would say school is pretty good. There's a lot of after
school isn't good for parents.
Correct.
So, I mean, when you're talking about adults and you're talking about family and you're talking about the people who have to orchestrate and take care of the family and have a community, have values, have structures, have things like this, there's no institution you can point to except the church, and this seems to be a prime value of yours.
Yeah.
So then churches and Christianity seem to be something that you should really support.
Not if this was my prime value, I would be Islamic, because they have a far stricter.
Okay, fine, Islamic.
Yeah, then I would be praising Islam.
But can we get to the long and short of the fact that this would have to still be a values problem and not an economic problem?
Well, I think it is a values
you would have
problem.
you would have just described kind of what I was pointing to, that it doesn't seem like the real issue here is a lack of money. Again, when we look at the individuals that have the most money, they have the least amount of kids. It seems it's more about like what they value, what their principles are. So the question is like, how do we change that around is what I kind of want to know, because
without an ethical position, right?
Well, I don't. I can't do that.
You'd need it. You would need it,
Well,
right?
so-
Because you would need to persuade people through logic,
Yeah.
reasoning, philosophy, practice, show them the way, all of
So,
these things. But
so an issue that you're running into is you're looking at some of the richest people and you're saying because they do not have many kids, that must mean that money is not an issue. That's not. That's a simple way of.
Issue, right?
But their issue is the key point there.
Okay.
Part of the reason why they're rich is because they have specific traits and characteristics that led them towards that behavior, like not giving a fuck about anything else other than money. Those are not necessarily the people that we're going to be pointing to when we're looking at assessing whether or not people are lacking money to be able to raise families. We're looking at people who maybe started to have a family and are running into significant financial issues that are resorting on doing things that are rather detrimental to either the longevity of their marriage and their family, or we're going to be looking at people who are on the cusp or like on the fringes of maybe wanting to start a family and ask them, hey, if I could do anything for you right now, what would I need to do to be able to get you to have a kid? And it seems like the two primary reasons are either medical reasons or financial reasons.
Material reasons.
Yeah,
It has to be
material,
financial,
being
right?
able to materially look after your child is one of the most important things you can do.
Well, but
Yes.
the problem is that it's subjective as to how much care you need to give
Bingo.
a
That's true.
child. So
Bingo.
when we're
Yeah.
so when we're talking about this, it's very difficult for me to accept the statement of we need to just give them more material gains, because it seems like when people shrug materialism off, children still get raised just fine. They
Well-
might have less, but even that builds good character.
That's not necessarily true, right? When
Not
people don't have
necessarily.
material gains, they raise kids just fine. We have a lot of information to show that in economically disenfranchised families have worse off children.
Not
Right?
if they have both
Would it be
parents in the
because-
home. Only if they're raised by a single mom do you see this big gap in the stats. If you're
Well,
low
there's-
socioeconomics, if you're in a low socioeconomic situation, but you have both of your biological parents in the home, those kids generally turn out fine.
How are you?
No,
wait, how are you
generally-
gonna get both? How are you going to get both parents in the home if one of them
By
has
having men
to
and
work
women
like
treat each other a
overtime?
little bit better.
How are you going to have both
to
of
do
them? How are
with
you going to
what
have
I just
both parents
said?
in the home
What does
if
that have to do
you
with what I
that
just
early?
said?
You'd also need like time management skills for that one. I mean, that doesn't seem.
And
Time
time
management
management
is
skills
based
is not
around, like,
something
your work
that
schedule,
low
right?
income people are great at. No?
I still wouldn't even agree to that. Like, okay, so what
Really?
you're saying is because people are working too much, they won't be able to have the time to invest in their children.
Yes.
Yeah, that seems to be
That's incredibly
Right,
common.
that
Yes.
That would be extremely consistent with what Andrew said with single mother households, right? But if you have a
Yes,
male and
I
a
don't
female,
disagree
mother
with
and
that.
father, you don't think the two people can work together in order to manage their time? It's not possible.
Nobody's saying it's not possible. What we're
Okay,
saying
so it
is
is possible.
pragmatically. No.
Okay.
Yeah. No,
the stressor,
nobody's claiming that it's
applies to
physically.
rich people too. The rich mom and dad, let's say they're both working and they're all stars. They're never home. That doesn't necessarily give the child a great life. They have an au pair or like someone that they learn, they hang out
Yeah,
with.
but they're also in
still
comparison to the poor.
applies.
In comparison to the poor person, they're getting a top-notch education with top-notch nutrition with top-notch
Yeah, but what about
everything, all
the
this other stuff
integrity and the
that
honor
are giving
and
them
like, but what about the people skills? Like we can see that a lot of
I-
these people who come from these homes can be really selfish, really egotistical, and just not good individuals who then go on to
Gen-
carry and have their own children.
we
Sometimes
can
There's a
we
lot
can
of-
talk about like specific outliers or stuff like that, but in general, in a two-parent household, if you come from a two-parent household that is wealthy compared to a two-parent household that's in poverty, the two-parent household that is wealthy, their kid is going to do significantly better than the one that grew up in poverty.
Yeah,
There
well,
is a-
wait a second, because there's some nuance here. If you say they're going to do significantly better, as in they're probably going to end up with more money, that's true. Are they going to go to better schools? That's probably true too. But if you're talking about, are they going to go to prison? Are they going to start committing lots and lots of crimes? Are they going to do those types of things? That's far less clear. So it depends on what you have for a metric of doing okay or not okay. I would say that if a person is born in impoverished conditions, like me, and you go off and you become a middle-class person, you have no prison record of any kind, you have a wife, a house, a dog, named Shep and a white picket fence, I would say that your metric for success was just fine. I don't see a problem with that. And I think that if you have the advantage, the true advantage now is not even money. The true advantage seems to be just having two biological parents inside the house seems to be the best indicator for success out of any data I've ever looked at for anything. For any metric across the board you can think of, be it financial, be it prison, be it success in life, happiness, everything. So the thing is
you're fighting ghosts right now.
So
Nobody
as we break
disagrees
this,
with this.
no, they do. Because as we break this down, you have to try to understand that when they say the poor, they're not really talking about the poor. You're usually talking about single mother households.
We are not. I am talking about two-parent households. There's two-parent households
Show
in
the
poverty
data.
and two-parent. Okay.
Show the data.
Let's say we agree. Do you still would agree that you need the mother and the father in the house, right?
Nobody disagrees. A two-parent
Okay.
household
as
is
long as
better
we
for
agree,
kids.
Yeah, okay, good. As
We're
long
all
as we
agreeing
agree.
on
Nobody disagrees with
Alright,
that.
good. Just to be clear, okay.
And I think even on the point about like if you only have one parent, they have to work all day. That's part of why having two-parent households is more beneficial, is because if one person is working more often, the other parent has the ability to be around the kids and gives them more time to.
Yeah, I would
pick
say
them
that's
up
a good
from school and
advantage.
all
But
that.
I think the ultimate advantage to it is you have the moral foundation of both the feminine and the masculine perspective in the right doses depending on your sex. So if you're a boy or you're a girl, being able to look favorably on men because you're raised by one, or if you're a little girl, understanding that masculinity is okay, this type of thing. These are huge benefits in people's lives that they take for granted. If you have two biological parents in the home, it's not just about the money. It's not just about this. It's actually about the non-material things. So how you feel about things, what your comfortability is in life, knowing that you're loved, you're cared about, all of those different things. These are not material aspects. And every time I talk to progressives about this, they want to dismiss the non-material religious aspect that really comes into play when it comes to raising another human being, the spiritual aspect. And they reject that for just pure materialism. Just throw more fucking money at it. We throw tons of money at it right now. It's not solving the problem. The birth rate's continuing to decline. Okay.
I think both of us have already said that religion plays a factor on happiness levels and stuff like that.
Well, then if that's the case, why won't you make the prescription to go for it?
The problem being is that if you want a two-parent household with both of the parents actually raising the child, it's not going to do any good if one of the parents has to work all day.
What do you mean? Why would that not do any good?
Wait, so you want a two-parent household, but it doesn't make any difference if the father is out working overtime. It doesn't factor.
Why would that matter? The father still has days off. Men have always traditionally worked. That's one of the masculine things you're showing the next generation that it's okay to do is work hard, these types of things. Just because you have less time to physically spend at home with children does not mean you're any less impactful as a male who's working on behalf of your family. They see that. I know this. I have many children. Of course they see that. It's ridiculous for you to say anything to the contrary.
It also seems to be the case that the more expensive it is to take care of this child, the more that the relationship between the father and the mother starts falling apart, and the less happy the parents are with raising the child.
Okay, but wouldn't that still be about the character of the two people in their relationship? Like if you're having friction,
your conditions are going to determine your character.
Perhaps, yes, but not
honestly,
with
religion.
Conditions shouldn't. Like if you have like a moral framework, the conditions don't change it. That's the point of having
you overcome the circumstances.
Yeah, exactly. And if anything, it's actually unreasonable, right, to have this friction when you need this woman or when you need this man the most. That's actually
the death do us part through richer and poorer, through sickness and health.
If anything, in that situation, that's when you need the person the most. So to me, listen, I don't even think that maybe we would 100% should throw out. Maybe the government should help. Maybe we could talk about it. But as a baseline, I do think it's the parents' responsibility to take care of their children, right? And if you have a father who's working, right, mom can still work part-time. Again, children are a temporary state. When they're like 5, 6, they're going to school, right? So if your mom is working at 8 to 2 o'clock, she can pick you up. There you go. That's a part-time job. Father, full-time job. You can work with the woman or with the man. So to me, it seems really silly that we talk about the government and all that when we have a male and a female who can talk to each other, interact with each other, figure this stuff out together? Why don't we encourage more men and women working together to get this stuff straightened out?
So how do you guys feel about it? It seems to be the case that you guys are just against any sort of like welfare. Is that correct? Am I misrepresenting that? Or
You are. I literally said like we can discuss this, but like as a baseline, why don't we discuss male and females as a first mover before we get to the welfare? Why don't we get men and women back on track with working with each other? Like you would have to do that regardless of government welfare or not.
I want to focus on like what increases the happiness of parents. If it seems to be the case, that
I would
all parents
imagine
are
having a
miserable,
happy
then, like, people
relationship
probably
would
aren't
increase
going to want to have
happiness.
kids.
Relationships, yeah, I would agree with
Yeah.
that.
So like,
if I'm with a good woman who cares about me and helps me, and I'm a good man, I care about her and I help her. You don't think we'd be happy people?
it seems to be the case that once parents have kids, and the more kids that they have, the more strain on their relationship. And if you want these relationships to fall apart because they're overworked, because their kids are expensive to take care of, then that's not going to be the type of family that I would think
What would
be
overcome the
beneficial for
strain,
the
though?
society and our economy.
There's something you're leaving out, which is that no, it doesn't necessarily seem to be the case that just because they are having children, there's a strain put on the relationship for both parties. Women are the top initiators of divorce to the tune of such a high percentile, 75+%. The college educated, it's even worse.
Yeah, women have higher
there clearly must be some other reason, again, like he's saying, besides just the financial that's coming into play here. Even though they may make the claim that it's irreconcilable differences or money, the man seems to not think that the money is the issue. He seems to think there's something else which is the issue. So it does seem to come down to relationship dynamics again, not just materialism and money.
Wait, then how come it's the case that the more children you have, the more dissatisfaction with the relationship?
Well, can we just say it's the children? Can we actually break down what's going on in their relationship, the standards the woman might be having, the nagging she might be doing? Maybe the man is neglectful. Maybe the man it has crappy character. It doesn't seem like it's
women.
just the
It seems
kid.
to be the case
You
that
gotta
a
break
lot
it
of the
down.
focus for women starts shifting more towards the kids, and it does tend to be the case that the focus for the men starts being more towards the work.
So that's
And when you have a
That's because they have to take care of the kids.
When you have a divide like
too.
that, you're gonna have strain on the relationship. And if you want less strain on the relationship, then you should probably mitigate these factors.
And what are the best ways to mitigate the factors of being hyper-focused on materialism? Probably to not hyper-focus on materialism.
Just don't think about the expenses. Just
No,
pray
it's not. I
just
didn't
pray
say
it
anything
like
about the
you are.
expenses.
Hyper-focus.
But here's the thing. What happens is often people want lifestyles which they can't afford, and they're enabled to have those lifestyles often
being a
by the
parent.
same welfare state that you advocate for,
Wait, like
who
being a
instead
parent,
of
right?
allowing them to fail, that it instead artificially props them up. They become used to a standard of living which they don't even deserve. Now, growing up poor is not a bad thing. This idea that it's bad to be poor is fucking insane. Okay, there's lots of people out there who are poor. It's not the end of the world. Propping everybody up so that they can never fail or fall on their face is the worst idea anybody's ever had. Of course, you're going to fall on your ass.
So I'm glad you bring that up, because it seems like one of these lifestyles that people choose that they can't afford is having kids. And if you say fuck it,
First
listen,
step.
like you're
First
gonna have to wait. Let me finish. You're gonna have to just experience this failure. I mean, you're talking about kids that are being raised into adults in our economy. These are the kind of kids that you want in our economy.
There's still people.
As opposed to which kids?
Kids who are
As
raised.
opposed to which kids?
Yeah, which kids are they? Am I opposed to? Yeah. What are you talking
As
about?
opposed to kids who, as opposed to children who
exist.
grow up inside of families with
So
a more
kids.
secure, and with a more secure financial foundation. That's
So
what they're
let's.
opposed
So
to.
we're gonna start with we need to have kids, though, right?
I think it is a perfectly fine statement to say that you want there to be more children. Sure, yeah.
Okay.
And that we ought to have kids for this reason.
But what about the super religious families? Like we kept talking about Christianity and things like that. How about the super religious families that are against, like, for example, abortion? So Relay had made a point about like teenagers not really knowing sex education like that and getting pregnant and doing stupid stuff to where they get pregnant, and their families, of course, don't agree with abortion, so they end up having kids when they're like 14, 15 years old.
You tell me they have
What's
a
the question?
family?
You don't think that that's a factor in why some people might be unhappy as parents? I mean, they're children raising children.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there would
Okay.
be a financial struggle, but so religion can't just be the only answer. When
But we're
religion
to answer
often
this
makes-
question, and it is a good question, right? Because you are right. The dissatisfaction rate, the younger that you are with children, is higher, regardless of your socioeconomic conditions. But kind of for the purpose of this conversation, I think that the stats that we're talking about are 18 plus, but because that's the way that the data is often collected. At least that's what I usually look at. But you do make a valid point, is that there's a dissatisfaction rate, which is there. However, again, the religious always were able to curtail and mitigate, because one of their highest values is not to have sex out of marriage, having these out of wedlock children to begin with. That was another mitigation long before there was any type of birth control, and it was not something which was an ongoing pandemic in most of the nation's history. So as we move back into this, try to understand again, all you seem to be able to do is throw materialist solutions at this, sir. And every time we get into the materialist solution, you just kind of shrug off the non-materialism. And the last argument that you made to me was, so which person would you rather hang out with, essentially? A poor kid or a middle-class kid? That's basically what it's summarized as being. You realize that, right?
Are you talking to me or Zena?
Yeah, you.
Okay, you shifted people halfway through.
Mhm. That's true. That's fair.
Yeah, so like, I'm not saying, and I've said multiple times earlier, that I think religion is something that generally just benefits people's well-being. That is true. And it does increase the amount of like community that people have. But the thing is I'm not saying that this is like a catch-all. And I am saying, and it's not just the case that I want to give like materialist solution. There are material problems that need to be mitigated. If you want to increase the happiness of parents, if you're not concerned with the happiness of parents and you think that religion is going to take care of all of it, then I would understand how you come to your conclusion. But it seems to be the case with like basically like every bit of research in this area that financial issues are the biggest reason for the families falling apart, the marriage falling apart, and people being dissatisfied while raising kids.
Actually, that's not true. So I just pulled up the study because you had made this bold claim that the more children that people have, the more tension that it raises inside their household. And actually, this isn't true. The people who report the most amount of happiness overall over all demographics are people with 4+ children.
Oh yeah, who did that study?
This
Is
study,
that the Institute for Family Studies?
Yeah, I will cite it for you. Hang on. I'll put it in the chat for you. But yes, the people with 4+ children are the ones. Let's see. This was according to the Edith Cowan University. This study is out of Australia. Parents with the most life satisfaction, which means those with the happiest, are those with 4 or more children.
Okay, let me. I'll give you my study, and then you can give me your study. I have a meta-analysis that we can look at, and then we can look at yours if you want to.
Happily.
It seemed like at the beginning of the conversation.
Sorry, go ahead.
It seemed like at the beginning of the conversation, most of the disagreement was going to be over whether or not how we incentivize women to have children, and whether or not we stigmatize women who do not have children. Yeah, we haven't gotten there. That's why I'm mentioning it. Because initially, the thing that prompted this conversation was the TikTok video that Matt Walsh and a bunch of people quote tweeted, upset that a woman was saying that she was happier single. Lots of people were posting studies saying that the happiest demographic was middle-aged women who were single and without a spouse. And then people were making arguments about the fact that, like, based on global warming and bullcrap like that it was like better that people weren't having kids and that we weren't incentivizing it. So I was curious what, like Relly, you thought about people or the world actually being better off with people having less kids.
So I don't think the world is better off with people having less kids as a initial thing. But nonetheless, I also, to my knowledge, anybody can correct me if I'm wrong, I think that data showing that like women in their 30s who are single and childless is like the most happy, I don't think that is actually true. I think that was I think that was a
Maybe euphoric.
misunderstood. I think that was a misinterpreted thing. To my knowledge,
from that
most
Dolan guy,
people. most
sorry.
people on average are happier married, not necessarily with children, but married. And so encouraging that people get married and have a partner is something that it seems like we should do for the happiness of society. But the video specifically, it seemed like there was a bit of cope that they were doing about the situation, but also it seemed like they were kind of combating the narrative that they probably heard their entire life, that the only way for them to be happy is if they had a child. And so they were kind of like stuck in a counter culture kind of a thing where they're like, I want to push back against this narrative that's being put onto me, and that's what happened there. And
So let me kind of
Well,
let me be
I mean-
charitable. I can be charitable here because there's a lot that you agreed with or said that I agree with. So I do think that there is a counterculture, which is now, and the reason it's becoming the counterculture is because we have seen the birth rate so drastically drop inside of the United States, and the dissatisfaction level, especially with middle-aged women, with their crying YouTube videos, as they say, the worst mistake I ever made was getting divorced and breaking up my family. My kids hate me, and then the next generation not having children, et cetera, et cetera. I do think that there's a lot of cope going on both sides, to be perfectly honest with you. But to be, again, charitable to your point, I do think that there's obviously something which is overlooked, which is that there is a biological drive that most women have to have children. There really is. And so, of course, the dissatisfaction rates for women who don't have them is going to be significant. And if you think that that's not going to carry over into relationships, I think that you're a fool or haven't been in many relationships, because there's nothing about a woman's hormones that doesn't carry over into a relationship, just so you understand. So I'm just saying. But I want to try to be kind of charitable to your point and hoping you will expand on it, and then maybe we can have a good faith discussion from here.
Wait, is it your position that every single woman wants a child?
No, well, of course not. Nothing's a
Okay.
monolith.
Okay,
Nothing's a
so then-
monolith.
Okay, so then
That's
then
right. But by the way, the first thing I say is let's be good faith, have a good faith discussion. First thing you ask is the most bad faith question. Do you, you think
okay,
on,
well,
dude.
no. So then I'm gonna ask
that was
you.
fucking pathetic, man.
Okay, how many people, how many women, percentage-wise, do you think have to have a kid to be happy?
I think
I
that
would go
I think
95.
the
I would
majority. I can't give you the exacting percentage. There's no way
You
for
don't
me to
think they can be
determine that,
happy
but it would be
without
the
it?
majority who, well, I think they have a biological drive. It's not that you can't find happiness absent children. You can find happiness in almost any conditions. Many people can find happiness in prison. You can find happiness on a desert island. This doesn't mean it's optimal, bro.
Wait. So do you believe that men have a biological drive to sleep with a bunch of women?
Well, they definitely have a drive to
Yes.
have sex with
Okay,
them.
wait,
A lot.
but you're religious, and I'm assuming you believe that men and women should be monogamous, correct?
Yes.
So you believe in restricting our biological drives.
Yes.
Okay, so is the idea that, like, just because women have a biological drive for, like, as a general statement for kids, that means that they ought to do it?
No.
Because you don't agree
Yeah,
that they ought to. Okay, so then.
I made a series of is claims. I didn't even get to an ought. Now
Okay,
you're
because
giving me an
no,
ought.
I
give me the ought
asked a
claim
question.
for her.
I didn't give you anything. I asked you a question.
Yeah, I
Okay?
didn't make the ought claim off of those. So I'll
Okay, so-
grant you all of these is claims. Here's the is claims I'll grant you.
Okay,
It is true
so
that
the-
I think that men on average would like to have sex with lots of beautiful
Okay.
women. I don't think this is controversial. On
Okay.
average, I think that most women want to have children and
Like-
have biological drive to do that. I don't think that that's something which is in dispute either.
Okay, so like how men can restrict their, sex drive where they want to fuck a bunch of women, I
Mhm.
think that there are women who go through their life and they have different priorities and they don't necessarily want to have kids. Maybe they
Like
just
a
want to
nun?
be married. Maybe they just want a partner and they just, want to do that. Maybe they want to adopt. There's stuff like that, right? But they don't want to have kids of their own. Part again in that survey, medical reasons, and one of the number one medical reasons is the issue, possible complications with pregnancy and long-term negative effects of pregnancy on the body that a lot of people are scared of. Maybe too much, maybe too little. There's a lot of confusing
get it.
information for
I
women.
understand.
So
But
yeah,
I think there's a false paradigm here, though, which is that yes, maybe there is a biological drive that men seem to have where they do want to have sex with a lot of women. I wouldn't dispute that. You wouldn't dispute that. They seem to be just fine and satiated with a single partner for their whole life. And they don't even seem to want to initiate divorce from that partner very often because they almost never do. So I think that the distinction here, though, is that women, on the other hand, do seem to be absolutely miserable in many, many, many cases. If they can't have children, far more miserable than men seem to be by not being able to have multiple sex partners.
I would have to see information on that.
Isn't it just intuitive to you? Do you know men who are
so,
like, I don't have 5 women to fuck, I'm gonna die? Wait, they're not men are
so
not
like
making
for
YouTube
instance,
videos
so for instance,
don't have 5 women to have sex with.
For instance,
It's just
right? We
crazy.
could look at the rate of cheating, and that is disproportionate amongst men.
It's
and
not that
cheating,
disproportionate, though.
You're right. It's not massively disproportionate, but it is. It's disproportionate amongst men, right? And we could look at that and go like, hey, maybe this is signs that men are.
There's counter data on this because when women are
complex.
secretly polled, when they're allowed to be anonymous, or when they're asked, like Ashley Madison, these places, they do claim infidelity at much higher rates than the polling data gets when they're polling them. So that's highly conflicted data. That's one. And two, if you can show me all of the man cope on all of the social media about how miserable they are with their one partner because they just had to go out and have sex with many, many, many women, and that's why they never initiated divorce with the one that they had, versus all of the women who are crying all the time, daily, all over, everywhere. I would love to see that because I don't think it exists because I think that you're comparing apples and oranges here, man.
Well, so if I wanted to have a more accurate comparison there, I would compare the amount of men that are willing to settle down at earlier ages. What a lot of men are doing is they're choosing to have a sexually adventurous time in their early mid 20s and then choosing to settle down a lot later. A lot of them, like my roommate, in contrast to me, I want to be able to get married as soon as possible. I like marriage. I like long-term relationships. I think that shit is based. But my roommate,
that's a base take.
As an example, very much he wants to get married later in life. He wants to be able to do all that stuff, a little bit later. He wants to do it like early 30s and stuff like that. That's when he wants to do it, right? And there's people, and a lot of people are shifting closer towards that idea. And that is probably evidence that I would pertain to the idea that men are not super satisfied with the idea of settling down or committing to a marriage or committing to a long-term relationship as early as they were in the past.
Well, okay, but so this, hang on. So this
that.
actually begs a different question. Why were they more willing to do so in the past if it was such a thing which was against their nature?
In my opinion, because of a cultural norm in which we shame the idea of promiscuity.
So it's not about their nature; it's about the culture.
Well, also not just.
Would
you agree we celebrate promiscuity in our culture, like in media and entertainment?
Oh, we definitely do.
E-skanking and all that.
I don't necessarily think we do. I think there's a lot of mixed messaging about promiscuity. I do actually. So, like, if we point towards like. We could pick one of the most popular, like, promiscuous shows out there, Euphoria. Like, I'm sure a lot of us know of that show. Yeah, Euphoria. That show, it depicts a lot of sex. All of those people are miserable. All of them. That's the whole fucking show, is that they're fucking miserable, all fucking each other's boyfriends and girlfriends. And I think that's most of the media that, like, teens are watching. It's like, yeah, it is like, wow, crazy, this like sex and shit is happening, but it's also like every one of these people are depressed. Some of them are suicidal. Some of them literally kill themselves. Like, and they're like, at the end of the day, what usually happens is they settle in some kind of marriage or long-term relationship, and that's the resolution.
A very dissatisfied one, at least from the woman's part, which is what we see pretty often.
What, in the media, the depictions?
No, I'm talking about like in reality. We oftentimes see that women are the ones who are mostly dissatisfied with the men that they choose, not really the other way around.
I think that a part of that issue stems from the fact that there's a significant change in the demands of what it means to be a successful man in a relationship amongst the culture today. Like, what it means to be a high value or a man who's worthy of being in a relationship is changing in front of our very eyes.
It's being Bruce Wayne, essentially.
Well,
It's being
no,
it's being
there's
attractive. It's having a good amount of money. It's being a really social dude. It's about being able to trigger the spark the moment the woman sees you. It's not about virtue. It's not about character, which honestly kind of makes sense to me. Again, if we're talking about like why people aren't having like families or having relationships, it's because we're not focusing on the character and actually having this family, but the sparks and the good feelings that we get because we see attractive people. I would
But
probably
base, let me ask you a
note that.
question.
Mhm.
The things that you're talking about, the character, the virtues, things like this.
Mhm.
Again, what's the institution you would indicate which teaches all of these
Oh, it'd be
things?
Christian. Look, man, I'm Christianity 100%.
Right. So I mean, again,
That's
every
me.
every time we look at one of these arguments, and it's just reduced to pure materialism, we don't get anywhere in the answer because the answer clearly is not pure materialist. Unfortunately, this is
I don't-
even if
I
you
don't think
are a
anyone said
person.
pure
Yeah,
Okay,
nobody
hang on,
said
hang on,
it's pure
stop.
materialism.
Stop. Anytime we reduce it, that seems to be the only prescriptions you guys want to give. Are you going to really give a prescription that you
We
think
did
that the
not.
state-
Wait, no, that's not even
Wait,
true.
what are you talking about? You're literally lying. I was the one who
I'll-
brought up having a
I'll
family
demonstrate it.
household
I'll
full of
demonstrate
like
it.
people.
I'll
What are you talking
demonstrate
about?
it. Right now, will either of you two say that if the results on society were better, meaning demonstratably better, the birth rates went up, marriages lasted longer, should the state promote Christianity if that's the case?
Yeah, sure. If you could actually quantifiably prove it, yeah, why not?
Okay, and then you, sir?
Sure, yeah.
You would actually go for that?
Yep.
Oh,
So
well,
does that
then-
make you a liar then? Because
then
you
that's
just so that yeah, the problem is you can't demonstratively prove that. What you can demonstratively prove is that there's certain cultural norms that Christianity does promote, which are pretty cool. I haven't denied that, and in fact, I think it's really weird for you to bring up the idea that I've been denying it or I haven't been pushing cultural norms this entire fucking
You mean the
time
guy
when
who
we've talked. Excuse me, I let you talk. Excuse me,
The Mr.
Excuse me.
Mr.
Excuse me.
Counselor guy,
Excuse
huh?
me.
Well, let him
Excuse
finish.
me.
Go to get your family values.
Wait. There's even counseling.
Go to
There's even the
counselor.
marriage counseling isn't like a new thing.
Fucking idiot.
Marriage counseling was a thing even by like priests in religious context.
Yeah,
the idea that religious
priests.
that
Priests,
marriage
dude,
counseling
marriage
is some
counseling. I'm shocked.
leftist idea that's like only progressive weirdos push is ridiculous. Okay, first off. Second off, right, this entire time I've been talking about promoting family structure, keeping families inside of the household, something
Yeah.
that I wasn't even talking about. That
Yeah,
wasn't
marriage
even necessarily
counselors.
the top.
Marriage counselors. That's where you go
That's-
for
I mean,
community.
you're
Remember, marriage
constantly-
counselors.
I love this bad faith. Everybody's hearing it. Everybody's hearing this bad faith that you're constantly
You
bringing
said
up.
that
When
shit.
you
Did I
already,
say
when
marriage counselors?
you already agreed with the ideas that I brought up about keeping the family together, keeping them inside of a house, building that kind of community and that bond between your family, I would promote that. But the idea that we have to promote a specific religion doing it is unnecessary.
You
We can
just
promote
said
those
we should
ideas
do it if
we-
if I can demonstrate
if you
which,
can prove it,
So
which
I
you
just-
cannot.
So
What
I
you-
just
what we
hang
can
on.
demonstrate.
So this
No?
is the crux then.
Because you've been interrupting.
It
me.
literally
You've been
said
interrupting me.
is materialism
you're
the
constantly doing
is
it.
materialism the issue?
can't help
You go,
himself.
yes, materialism is an issue. What about the religious aspects of this thing? Aren't those super important? Yes, those are all super important. Shouldn't we promote those aspects? No, you can't demonstrate it.
The reason why the
Bad
religious
faith.
aspects are important is because they push certain cultural norms that at least I am willing to admit are good. We should focus on those cultural norms rather than saying Christianity is ubiquitously the best. Because I even made a comparison to Islam. Middle Eastern countries are objectively doing better than we are in regards to keeping their family units together as a culture. And so the idea that you're just like, look at Christianity, it failed in the West. It failed. So should I not look at Islam to be able to do that? It's ridiculous. How about instead of this, let's throw all of this away. Let's not look
Okay.
at specific religions. Let's look at specific
Of course
ideas
not.
and praise these people who are practicing cultural ideas and cultural norms that are genuinely good for most people.
Okay.
And some of these things are, of
Fair.
course,
Okay, so
religious.
going on down this line of logic, then, what would you say those cultural norms should be that the state pushes to make them normal?
Two parent households. I think they should push and incentivize. It depends on. We could talk about ways they could push, but ways of pushing kids for staying inside of the
what?
house for.
I just want to know what. Not the house, just what. They
Oh,
should.
okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Pushing people to stay inside of their household and build familial wealth for longer than just like, I'm 16, I'm gonna go rent my own apartment for some reason and get in a ton of debt and fuck my parents. Like that shit is lame. Staying with your family and stuff like that. We're learning how to communicate and work with your family members and shit.
Okay,
like that.
so I just want to make sure I'm clear. So I'm not straw manning you, and I'm going to try to be as maximum good faith here as I can possibly be. the norms that you would like to see the state push are 2-parent households, right?
Yep.
And you want them to push family values, right?
Yep.
Where does LGBTQ fall into that?
I don't think there's any relevancy at all. I mean, besides the idea that 2 parents can also be 2 men or 2 women.
Oh, I see. And what if I could demonstrate that the outcomes for the children of those people were worse than if they were from 2 biological heterosexual parents? Would you then say that the state should push that as being normal or not?
What you would have to demonstrate is, as a result of them being gay, it is negatively impacting the children. Not that them being gay also has not that them being gay correlates. No, not that them correlates. So, but nonetheless, I literally do think that gay people have better outcomes when they have children, when they adopt, than non-gay people. And then one of the primary, one of the primary
people adopt, and they don't have children. So
right, and one of the reasons why is something that me and Kid have been trying to get at, which is family planning. Being able to plan for your families, and one of the most important things of that is being able to have the finances in line to be able to plan for your family. So I'm going to
ask you again, because I don't understand. This makes no sense. Homosexuals don't have children. They don't. They can't. Right? It's not possible. So they adopt. Right? They adopt children. So, and they don't adopt very many children, by the way. Almost none of them do. Why would you want the state to advocate for homosexuality or advocate for homosexual parents or any of this if they could turn those resources towards strong family binds, strong family values, strong 2-parent households? Why wouldn't you want them to promote that?
So,
to be fair, it's completely uncommon to adopt more than at most 3 kids anyways, unless you're extremely rich like fucking Angelina Jolie. It's really hard to even get in the adoption list. You're in a wait list to get these kids. So if you're obviously a gay couple, I think it would probably be a little bit harder simply based off the fact that you are a gay couple and the potential people that are
anymore. They just deal with the same thing.
Yeah, but could be homophobic. We don't really.
They outsource.
No, we do know. But still, even if it was good for like a teensy tiny percentage of these kids, why would you want the state to waste its resources promoting LGBTQ, gay pride, all this stuff nonstop, 24 hours a day, every channel, everywhere, instead of making the
I thought we were being good faith. Okay, you're prescribing the idea that I am advocating.
But nobody even said to promote LGBT.
Exactly.
Hang on.
I think you guys
hang on.
No, Zena's right on it.
I'm making the point. The point is that if you were to prescribe these things, do you think that it would be a waste of time for the state to promote things outside of this? Do you think that would be contrary to the point of the federal government for the health and welfare of people, instead of focusing on these things which you consider good values for people, and I do too, to instead also claim contrary values which are not good for the nation? Shouldn't we advocate against those things is my point.
So
for LGBT?
Yes. Yes.
Wait, against the values of a 2-parent household?
Yeah.
Those aren't, 2 biological parents.
Family values is.
Oh, wait, you threw that in there last minute.
Okay. Your beliefs, whether you're homophobic or not, promoting family values has nothing to do with sexuality or LGBT, any of that. You can have 2 mothers, you can have 2 fathers, and have a successful family. So
but you could be dirt poor and have a successful family. You could live in a desert island and have a successful family. But none of that has to do with the fact that it's not optimal to having a family, for sure. They can't even have children.
Here's the issue I have.
Children, for example,
only a teensy tiny amount do.
But still, because adoption is already hard as is, because it's not the normal and it's not pushed.
So we're just discriminating against the gays.
So then, with being Christian or whatever and being against abortion, people are forced to raise kids because it's a sin. This is that and third.
It is a sin.
Whereas if the kids did not have the abortions and had the children and adoption was made easier, I do think that gay people would probably get more children.
Oh, okay. Well, then tell me what is a single barrier that's in the way of 2 homosexuals adopting a child, if you would?
I just said the long wait list to adopt.
That's everybody, not just homosexuals.
It's a little bit longer for my.
No, well, tell me what the distinction is. Show me that gays have to wait longer than heterosexuals. I'd love to see that data because it's nonsense.
Depending on whom you're adopting. Are you private adopting? Are you public adopting?
That's not my question. My question to you was to demonstrate that it's a longer wait period for homosexuals than it is for heterosexuals to adopt a child. That's bullshit. That's
Right,
one.
but understand that heterosexuals can have their own children. So of course,
Yes, of course they can. We're talking about adoption.
yeah, they can have a heterosexual can have their own children, whereas gay people can't.
What does that have to do with adoption? We're talking about adoption.
So while gay people are on a wait list, mind you, gay people just got
Straight people are on a wait list too.
Okay, so if you shut the fuck up interrupting everybody with your flabby fucking wrinkly ass face.
No, with your long ass nails, with your hoe ass bitch ass attitude. Do the head roll. Do the head roll.
Please, so that I could actually speak.
Do the head roll.
Moderate. Thank you. So back to what I was saying.
Do the head roll.
What year was it that
come on,
people were
let us
actually that gay people were given the rights to legal marriage? What year?
I don't know, sister. You tell me.
Because that was really recent. So adoption has been around for a long time. So of course a wait list is going to be long as fuck. Gay people are going to be at the bottom of the podium because they only just recently been legalized.
Demonstrated.
Have a household.
Demonstrated.
So the demonstration would be the year legal marriage for gay people was made possible.
Demonstrate that the wait list for homosexuals for adoption is longer than for heterosexuals, you airhead.
Yeah, so
They're
Xena,
at the
he's asking.
bottom of the list, you dumb fuck.
What
is that? Hold on. What does that mean, Xena? What does it mean for them to be at the bottom of the list?
Okay, so let's just do an example. Okay, let's say adoption's been around since 1920, right? Let's just say that. So there's a wait list from the regular heterosexual, right? It's building up. Say we've got like 1 million people on that wait list now, right? That's the heterosexual people. Now let's say gay marriage, to be able to have two parents in one household, just was made legal last year. That's 2022. They're on the bottom under that million, basically. They're just now hitting that wait list, is what I'm saying. They're not going to be put on the same fucking regimen as...
Now, I'm sorry to have to be the one to point this out, but you do realize that heterosexuals will also apply underneath that same million people, just like homosexuals. Can you demonstrate that they have to wait longer than the homosexual?
No. Newer people, if I went to go get on a wait list right now, I would be on the bottom of the podium. That's what I'm
I see. So this has nothing to do with homosexuals and adoption at all. You're just stupid.
You're trying to say that homosexuals opt not, that they may opt out of getting fucked. Like, you literally sound retarded as fuck.
Hold on, so Andrew...
I'm the one who sounds retarded, I see.
Wouldn't the question...
It's bad for society to have two fucking parents of the same sex.
Okay, so Andrew, wouldn't the question be... Hold on. Wouldn't the question... Hold on. Wouldn't the question be whether or not those kids are better off in an adoption center rather than in a home with gay parents?
Exactly.
Like, isn't not whether or not it's like a man and a wife, like heterosexual couple, but because lots of kids just aren't going to get adopted at all, and they're going to grow up their entire lives and age out eventually. So isn't it better? The question is, are they better off in an adoption center versus in a gay parent household? Which I don't know.
Her own arguments.
No, I'm asking. That should be the question right now. Yeah.
So I think I understand what Andrew's trying to say, right? He's saying that if we have a small population of homosexuals who are adopting, why would the government push that small population over the hundreds of millions of heterosexual people who can actually just naturally have children and have those families?
Why would they need to make a distinction at all?
Yeah, we can walk and chew gum at the same time.
Well, we could. Why aren't we? So then why are we focusing more on homosexuals being able to have these families than the heterosexuals? Like, where is the push and the cultural push and all the different, you could even say movies or just the people having the conversation, the debate?
I would argue we should have more representation, more of a push to be able to have two-parent households, to be able to keep the family units together.
So what should we?
Nobody here is disagreeing with that. Has better results for children.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know though. The language is kind of loaded. When you say two parents, do you mean two biological parents? Because that's what I'm advocating for.
Okay, so then that's where we would disagree then. I think having two gay parents is better than being in an adoption center your whole life. Yes, that is demonstrably.
Well, okay, great. So I would say that having any parents is better than like getting beaten to death on the street. I don't know that means anything. It's a total non sequitur, but
no, it does.
Moving back to
pushing
this,
pushing gay parents.
I'm going to make my argument, and you can
pushes
respond.
For for kids to get out of adoption centers because, like you said,
They rarely
gay
adopt.
parent no. Excuse me. I said pushing gay parents, right? So
Mhm.
when we're talking about pushing gay parents, the only way that they can have kids is through adopting, and therefore we get those kids who need a home. We get
Mhm.
them a home. So pushing for gay
Yeah.
people to be able to have children
Mhm.
by adoption is good for those children.
Perhaps,
Just so
but
you
like a
know,
small-
and you understand that if you take all those resources for this little teensy tiny percentage of the population, 2%, right? 2% or 3% by like the highest estimates, and you push all these resources towards them adopting, and a teensy weeny tiny percentile of them actually do, why would you waste all of those government resources pushing for that instead of pushing
When-
for biological parents to
Again,
stay
you're,
at
we
home
can
with their- I
walk
don't
and
even
chew. We
understand
can
that.
walk and chew gum at the same time. And the idea that you're talking about all of these resources, I haven't even said spent
makes
a
no sense.
dime. I haven't even talked about spending
those
a dime.
family values you're
All I'm
talking about-
doing, excuse you. All I am doing
Excuse
is
you.
excuse you. All I am
Excuse
doing
you.
is I am claiming that it is better to have gay parents
Mhm.
than have children grow up in these adoption
Yeah, that's
centers.
nice. So now
right?
back to my
And so
question.
I am saying
Mhm.
that it is absolutely the case that we should have an imperative to push these gay parents, gay people to adopt, to become parents, so that way they can give kids homes who actually exist right now.
Right. But the problem that you have with this is that you're using a ginormous amount of state resources to promote.
When have we talked about state resources? When?
Because you're
Where?
not saying
Right now,
because-
this is my counter argument to you, you fucking idiot. Listen to
I
what
never
I'm saying.
said about allocating any state resources.
I'm saying
All I said was
oh,
pushing.
you're okay.
Okay, then you're
listen.
fighting demons because I didn't say it.
You say we should push for gays to adopt. Who's pushing
Yes.
resources, moron?
Media, like Base was referring to, media depictions of gay parents being normalized. Pushing the idea that, like, being a parent, even as gay people, can be a very nice thing. The idea that we have to spend millions of dollars of government. No, we haven't. No, and potentially, no, we don't
So
have
just
to.
we as
I
the
don't
media?
know. We have to. Yes, media
it?
depiction. I believe that. Hold on. I think this is a cultural issue. I think this is a cultural issue. Throwing, like you said, throwing money at this issue doesn't solve the problem. We need to be able to encourage people to be able to have kids, and it's not this like unbelievably scary, daunting thing. It can actually be a very wonderful and beautiful thing to be able to have parents be able to raise a child. That's great. Even gay parents, I know. Holy shit, you're scared, you're shook. But like, the idea that we have to spend millions of dollars from the government to be able to do this, it's a boogeyman. You're fighting demons right now. I haven't even given you a dollar figure, and you're constantly coming at me saying, I'm spending all of these resources. We haven't even talked
Well,
about
how in the world could I have ever imagined that when you said we should be pushing, we as an as a society,
are you a Fed? Are any of us here a part of the government? Are you a Fed?
I just let you talk. When you say
Okay,
we
good.
should be pushing for these things, how in the world could I have ever imagined that you just meant the media? Because that's not what we say. When we're saying we, I think you mean collectively as a nation, don't you?
That is what he was saying as a society.
But collectively as a society doesn't mean that it's the government giving money. Hold on. When you say that we should be
Resources.
pushing, yes, when we're talking about government resources, when you're
Mhm.
talking about we should be pushing community or like any religious message, are you referring to we need government to spend millions of dollars on X, Y, and Z? Or could it also
Yes.
just be, okay, well then that's a difference of how we view things. I view things as Base brought it up at one point as well, which is media depictions, cultural influence that we have between people.
What informs
Having
culture?
conversation.
Wait a
Yeah,
second.
who
Wait a
informs
second.
culture?
People having social
What
conversation.
informs culture? Because we agree it's a cultural problem. What informs culture?
He said
People's social
media.
standards. And
What
media.
informs social standards?
People's conversations and people's opinions.
They come from
The people's feelings?
their values too.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay, where do those come from?
Your beliefs?
Yeah, what are beliefs? What are they habitually tied to?
Your
Wait, I'm
feelings.
sorry, do you think that they come from the government?
Yeah, do you think that your beliefs come from the
I didn't
government?
say anything about
No.
the
He's
government.
clearly leading
Okay.
you to religion. Like he's clearly leading you to Christianity.
He's telling you that
No,
that
clearly.
culture is downwind of theology,
Yeah.
and culture and government is downwind of culture.
Hold on. So just in your mind then, if there was no religion, there would be no such thing as culture.
There is no such thing as culture without religion. Name a culture without a religion.
So you believe every single person
Answer
who is
the fucking question,
I am answering your question.
Then do
you
it.
idiot.
Then do it.
You believe agnostic people have no
You know,
culture.
you're asking me a question now. Answer my question. Name a culture that has
agnostic
no
people have
religion.
culture.
What is the agnostic culture? Can you tell me? What is the dish? What is the official dish of the agnostic, sir? What is the official
What do you
dish
mean
of the agnostic?
There isn't an official
Because
dish of
culture
Christianity
agnostic,
either.
you fool. So tell me again.
What is
real
the
quick.
official dish of Christianity?
Give me real quick. Can you tell me a single culture on planet Earth which has ever existed absent religion? Any?
Increasingly, the United States.
Okay. Any culture absent religion, just one.
Wait, the United States was founded off of freedom of religion.
The United States was founded by a bunch of Christians. Can you give me a single?
For the understanding the freedom of religion to be able to practice a religion or a lack thereof.
The culture of the United States is clearly derived from Christian ethics and English common law, which was derived from Christian ethics. Can you give me a single culture?
Its whole point was to stray away from a theological position on the entire existence of their society. That was the reason why we have it so enshrined in our culture, freedom of religion.
Are you going to answer my question? Which culture can you cite that absent religion? Any of them?
Are you looking for like a state?
Any culture which has existed in all of human history absent religion.
Okay, I would refer to like the agnostic existence of like Western society right now.
Yeah,
you think the culture of the West exists absent religion?
That is it codified. Yes, the freedom of religion, the lack thereof. Yes.
Okay, hold on. We're gonna come right back to this. I don't know if anybody got questions through donos, but if anybody's watching any of these streamers, send your question in through the streamers. If you guys don't want to send them to me, or if it's hard for you to copy and paste them, we can let you guys read them in about 20, 30, hold on, in about 20-30 minutes. We'll do that. If people want to jump into the waiting room as well to ask some questions, we'll let you do that in just a little bit.
So you don't think Western culture was informed and still is not informed by religion? Specifically, in the West, the Christian religion.
It's whether or not a culture is informed by religion is a separate question to whether or not the culture is religious.
No, that's not what my question wasn't. Whether or not can you name a culture?
Oh, well then every culture is informed by every single type of religion because we influence each other in a global economy and global society.
So one more time, Jimbob's claim. Culture's downwind of theology. My question to you, can you name because you laughed and scoffed, made a mockery of it, can you name a single culture which has ever existed absent religion?
I would honestly disagree with the entire premise here. The entire premise is flawed. Like, religion is downstream from human values.
Values come from what?
From theology. It's the branch of philosophy values come from is theology.
No. Humans invented religion. Okay, let's be real. Humans invented religion to make sense of their own values that they got as social creatures through evolution. Okay, this whole idea that God invented these values is just wrong. And increasingly, the United States is becoming less religious, and people are still holding on to the same values, if not more so than they did in the past.
What methodology did you use to determine that religion is bullshit and made up?
Because we made it up. Like,
because we made it up. That's a great
we can
methodology.
argue about whether or not your fucking like Sky Fairy is real, but like ultimately,
so you don't have
anyone who has like any fucking brain cells. No,
what was my question?
We invented religion.
So you don't have a methodology.
If you want to talk about religion and whether or not your
methodology.
Sky Fairy is real.
The answer is no. You don't have a methodology.
That's fact all I needed.
No methodology.
Fact that we had values before religion. The fact that we evolved as social creatures, taking care of each other prior to religion.
So circular reasoning. Got it.
And what else did we do?
Religion itself is circular reasoning.
Even if that's true, even if it is true, that has nothing to do with the fact that you just gave us literally circular reasoning. Do you understand that?
No, you are giving us circular reasoning by saying that.
I'm not giving you any reasoning
from religion.
Would you accept the Soviet Union as an answer to your question about whether
the basis
a place
of it
that
was
existed
Orthodox Christian.
No, they literally
No.
slaughtered religious people in mass.
The Orthodox.
became
They
that,
slaughtered
is
the
thing.
Orthodox. Yeah,
Bad
that's true.
people do stuff.
Wait,
Yeah,
no. Okay,
that thing
so do
happened.
you agree then that that is an example of a culturally a-religious massive empire? Is the Soviet Union?
No,
Why?
because what they tried to do is they tried to purge out the thing that informed their culture, and
It
when
didn't
that
work.
thing was purged out from the information of their culture collapsed.
Yeah, it didn't work.
It doesn't. No. It doesn't matter whether or not it worked. What it mattered is that country was founded off of the idea of secularism. No,
There was a portion of their constitution which was derived from that. Indeed,
and
yes,
they killed in mass religious people.
that's true too. Yes.
Correct. So
Yes,
that is
but I
an
would say
example
that
of a
is
culture.
their theology. They worshipped their Stalin as a god, just like.
Oh, okay. So we're just shoehorning anything. Okay, so
Okay.
yeah, we're
Do you,
just
what do you
shoehorning.
think theology is, bro?
That's how
No,
that's how it
what do you
works.
think theology is?
The idea that there is a guy who was a dictator that they looked up to, and
What do you
therefore
think
it's a
theology
religion
is?
the same as like Christianity or Islam
Yeah.
is laughable.
What do
Can
you think
make a
theology
religion
is?
of men?
Yeah, I think you
Can
can.
you could make a religion with someone as the head, right? Where you treat them.
You can make a religion out of somebody who is currently existing or shit like that, right?
Yeah, okay, so
Christianity,
then it's theology.
Jesus Christ. No,
Right.
just because there is a dictator doesn't make it a theology.
What
Okay, that's
makes it a
wild and
theology? Can you tell me?
Ridiculous.
What makes it
So
a theology?
A faith in a individual or a concept or an
Okay.
idea
So
that
then it's a theology.
no.
Yeah.
That has no. Like you're describing. So hold on. Then do you think
If you worship
Do
a
you
man as
think
a
it-
god, is that theology?
he wasn't worshipped as a god?
Yes, he was.
No,
But if
he
we-
was worshipped as
Yes,
a
and so
dictator,
was
as a
Mao.
man who was.
No, he was worshipped as a god. So was Mao. So were many of them. Would you
Okay,
like
so you think
citations?
so?
for
Do
this?
you think every single dictator was worshipped as a god?
No, but I give you a specific example of many
Okay,
that
can you
were.
give me a couple of dictators who were not worshipped as a god?
Yes, I think that Pol Pot was not worshipped as a god.
Okay. Do you think that, for instance, how about Hitler?
No, I'm not. I don't know. I'd have to think about that one. Maybe by some sects, but not the
Would you
same way
accept,
that
would
Stalin
you accept
was.
religion, let's say, to just to meet in the middle, the religion
Yeah,
as a
Pinochet's another good
general,
example.
right? Because theology is a little. I agree with you that when we get into theology, we're actually probably getting into a whole branch of existing known beliefs. But let's say generally religion, like if the argument is culture is downwind from religion, let's say that even the examples you're giving, we could look and see men making a religion of a concept, a religion of an idea, a religion of a leader, right? And elevating them beyond some normal status, right? We see this habitually, correct?
I think I would meet in the middle here, actually. I think, personally, I do think that communism was sort of invented as a replacement for Christian ideas, and communism became like the new heaven. And it kind of calls back to a lot of classical, like Christian ideas. It seems almost fundamentally Christian to me in a lot of ways. Not that it's one-to-one, but I think that they sort of did try and replace heaven with communism and had it be this materialist
Utopianism, right? Like a utopianistic,
Yeah, so I would meet in the middle there, but again, I disagree with the entire premise that like culture is something that necessarily can only come from religion. Historically, it has, but I don't think that we had no values before religion came into the picture.
Can you tell me which culture then had values pre-religion?
I am not an anthropologist. I do think that it is the case that historically religion in most societies, and the way that we are going to classify religion in different societies is going to vary quite a bit.
Okay, well,
like
that's fair. So you're not an anthropologist, just in recorded history.
I mean, like I said, you're going to have like different. Like, what would you classify?
No,
like,
don't answer my question with a question. Answer mine, then ask yours.
Well, like I'm saying, I think
answer mine, then ask yours.
Am I going to be able to answer it, or are you going to just?
Are you actually going to answer it? Or
are
are you just
you-
going to ask one?
Like I'm saying, if you're ready to stop talking, I think historically it is the case that a lot of social norms that we end up having are shaped largely by religion, because religion has been around so long as the thing that we point to that gives legitimacy to our values. But those values inform the way that we created our own religions. If you have any moral intuitions from evolution as a social creature, then you want to legitimize those as objective, and religion is a really, really easy way to do it. But like I wanted to ask, I don't know if you would classify.
I don't feel like you
Wait,
actually answered my
hold on,
question.
Jesus, bro, chill. What I wanted to ask-
I just let you give your argument. What do you mean?
Well, I think you just like hearing the sound of your own voice.
Well, I mean, I do, but you still didn't answer my argument.
I know. It's okay.
All right, let him finish. Go ahead.
What I'm interested in is if you would take like indigenous spiritualism and stuff like that, where like
Before I
the
answer
earth
your
is
question,
worshipped
I would
and
like you
stuff
to
like
actually
that.
answer
Wait,
mine.
hold on. You cannot help yourself.
You just
were like a
asked me a
toddler.
question, bro.
You were like a toddler. You cannot help yourself.
You're just going to
And
ask me a question. Go ahead. Ask your question,
Wait,
then I'm just going to repeat back to you to answer mine. Go ahead.
I answered your question already.
What was the answer again?
That historically, I am granting that we see values shaped around religion, but religion was created through human values that came through evolution as social creatures.
Can you give me an example?
Of how religions were created? What do you
No,
what do you
how
mean?
intuition created something religion.
As social creatures in evolution, we have this idea that if the people around us and the community that we end up building is good for our sustainability, then we're going to be able to structure something which is beneficial to us.
Okay,
And
fair
the more
enough.
that-
Can you give me an example of that?
Oh my God, wait. I don't even think you're listening.
I am listening. Do you want me to repeat
you
it
are
back
not.
to you?
No, you're not. You have the shortest attention
I'll
span.
repeat
You're
it
like a
back to you.
goldfish.
Would you like me to repeat it back to you?
You want an example of a society that specifically was prior to religion and then invented religion.
Based on intuition.
I'm telling you, I'm not an anthropologist.
No, I just said historically. You don't need anthropology for history, right?
I'm not a historian either.
So then the answer would be what?
So do you
So
think
the answer would be no, right? You could just say that. You could just say no. Just say that. It'll make you feel better. Just say no.
Sure, I don't know of a society.
Thank you.
That
How many?
was-
So
I can't point you to a
I mean, how many
society.
fucking? How long did it fucking take to get that out of you? Now answer and now ask your fucking question, dude.
Wait. Repeat to me
Fuck.
what I told you. Repeat
Just-
to me what my premise was.
To me or
Yes,
your
you
answer
tell
to
yes.
me?
Yeah, you tell me.
So you asked me something about natives. So go ahead.
Was that
Ask your
my
ask-
premise?
I
Was
just
that-
asked you to ask
what
your
was,
question.
Wait, hold on. What was my pushback to the idea that
Well, that's a
religion
different
creates
question.
values?
I just
hold on,
clarified
that's-
that.
Hold on, that's what he was asking. He was asking what was his answer initially to why he doesn't think societies were necessarily religious.
Because he claims that intuition predates theology. And he says that this is from an evolutionary standpoint, which, okay, fair enough. He says he's not an anthropologist, so can't demonstrate that. So I just asked within the historical record if he could. His answer, ultimately, after I beat it out of him, is no. So is there any questions that you had for me?
Ultimately, it just comes down to whether or not you believe in evolution.
Yeah,
or
was
whether
there
or not
any
think that there's a
questions you
history of
had for me
evolution.
now?
Well, I guess at this point, like whether or not you believe in evolution, but I already know the answer to that. No.
If evolution was true, would he even have a belief? It would just be a sort of like a symptom of his
Well, that'd be
biology
fact.
and chemistry.
Excuse me?
I said a belief system itself, if he believes in evolution or you believe in evolution, wouldn't both just be a result of mechanics and chemistry and motion?
The creating values?
Anything, any belief.
Yes, creating values results as a process of evolution, yeah.
So no beliefs can be wrong under your view because they're just effects of evolution.
I don't believe in I don't believe in this like objective morality. No, like I said at the beginning.
Okay, but wouldn't truth claims themselves be just the effect of mechanics and motion and chemistry?
Sure. Yeah.
So how would you have
and
access
we
to any
demonstrate them with what we agree to as a common logic? Sure.
So truth is an agreement between people.
Yes. Yep.
So we can change the truth based on agreement.
If the logic changes, that changes our opinion about what is true. Sure.
Can
I
you
don't know.
change-
I mean, you're doing
can you
it right
change-
now, aren't you?
Can you change the laws of logic with an agreement?
You can change our understanding of it.
Can I ask
Nobody
him-
can
Can I
disagree
ask
with
him-
This
that.
is really, really straightforward. It shouldn't be this complicated.
Can you change the laws of logic via agreement?
You can change your understanding of the laws of logic via agreement. Yes. Yep.
Correct.
I can convince you.
Does that require the laws of
that something
logic?
is logical, and you can run the numbers in your head, and you
That's
can.
not what
agree
I
or disagree.
asked. You're not really good at answering questions, are you? I asked you.
You're asking a
Can
stupid
you
question.
change the laws of logic via agreement? Because your premise is truth is an agreement. This is the consequence of your premise. And we change
It's
the
not.
laws of logic via agreement. Yes or no?
Okay.
No, we wouldn't agree on it.
Could we, based on your premise?
We wouldn't agree on it.
Okay. What are
Could
the
we,
laws of
based on your premise?
Based on my premise, the laws of logic are something that you can demonstrate. If you can demonstrate that something else is true and consistent with the laws of logic, then sure, you can change. That's what we are doing right now.
What are the laws of logic?
Are you talking about like the
Just
the law
three. There's three of them. What
identity
are they?
and- Are you talking about the law of identity?
Yeah, the laws of
non
logic.
contradiction?
And then the third one is?
I don't remember.
You don't fucking even know. The laws of
you
logic.
don't. Dude, shut the fuck up.
Okay,
I'm asking
we're
you-
gonna-
What?
we're-
What?
we're-
You're gonna logic me with the laws you don't know?
I'm gonna pull us back just a little bit. But did anybody have questions from their chat before I? No. Okay.
I'm not streaming.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. Xena. Yeah.
How did this get to?
that-
Where did the childbearing and
Bro,
family
you're
matter?
Yeah,
lost.
we're so
You're-
let me
you're
ask you,
not-
Xena, as the representative of all women here, you're getting close to middle age, I believe you said. So do you have pressure on you to have kids? Do you feel like?
Oh, whoa. Well, to me, middle age is in the 40s, so I'm still not close to that. But that's just my take of what middle age is and how I was raised and the culture in which I was raised in. You're in
The
your
older
middle
you
ages.
get, do you feel like there's more pressure on you to have kids
From who? From myself or from other people?
from society? Yeah.
I suppose they would try to apply pressure, but I wouldn't take it as that, no. Because actively, the only people that can raise a successful family and a well-functioned family is the people that want to have children and actively make the decision to have kids. Society can't tell me to have kids.
Do you want to have kids?
Of course.
Do you feel like there's I guess. No, I'm not gonna ask that. So it
Is
does.
my maternal clock? Are you saying is my biological clock ticking? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I was gonna ask that. Yeah. Do you feel like you're running out of time at a
me-
certain point?
Not that I'm running out of time. I use that as an excuse to rationalize the fact that I just wanted to have kids. Since I was young, I wanted to have kids by the time I was 25, and I didn't do that because obviously, like, I walked away from a marriage. But yeah, so I want to have kids definitely before I'm 30. But at the same time, I know, like, my sister had her children, both of them, in her 30s, and they're extremely healthy and beautiful. So I know that that's possible. And then, I mean, I have family members that all had their kids in their 30s. My mom's the only one that had, like, us in her 20s.
I had a question, Tom, if you don't mind, if I follow up with Xena. Xena, is it true that you're an actual witch?
Yes, I am a witch.
And what type of witch are you, Xena?
Probably closer to neo-paganism.
Neo-paganism. And what is
Yeah.
does neo-paganism entail doing rituals to get a result that you want?
You mean like what, fertility rituals? Is that possible?
Well, whatever
with-
type of ritual that you have, it does entail you doing this ritual in order to gain some result that you want. Is that right?
If you follow it in if you're in a religion, you could, yes, but I'm not in a religion, so no.
Well, I don't understand. How do you practice witchcraft?
Okay, so witchcraft is just a word. Saying a witch is a word. It's just master of energy. That's literally what it means. The word witch comes from the word wick, which was energy. A wicca was a man and a wicki was a woman, and they're masters of energy. It's about I don't know if you we're talking about the laws of logic.
Yeah,
so I'm
I have
everybody-
studied witchcraft. Yes, in depth.
Okay, but so you know about like law of attraction and stuff. I
Yeah.
assume.
So the law of
Okay.
attraction specifically is what I wanted to ask you about. Do you
Okay, yeah,
believe? So do you believe that via the law of attraction that you can essentially will into existence using your own mental faculties and bring them to fruition, the things that you want.
Absolutely, yes.
Do you
100%.
recognize, in order to do this, necessarily you would be manipulating people's free will? And let me give you an example of this. Let's assume for a second that you wish with all of your heart, mind, and soul to get a bicycle. This was actually something which was stated inside of a famous movie, which was about the law of attraction. And one day, yeah, The Secret. And one day you go out and there is a bicycle there, which was delivered by somebody. I want you to think about the process which was involved in people manufacturing that bicycle, delivering the bicycle, and dropping that bicycle off at your doorstep. How many people's free will have you affected by wanting to get that bicycle? And can you tell me why that would be moral to do, even if it did work?
Okay, well, in The Secret, one, they don't talk about it taking away free will. It's actually how you can't affect somebody's free will at all. For example,
couldn't
even
it,
with
though?
love, you can't love
That's
spells
confusing to me.
and
Like, how would somebody
work.
manufacture an entire bicycle
Okay,
for
well,
you
one,
and then drop
that's
it off
not
to
how
you?
that happened. That was an example that was you. If you remember, I don't know when's the last time like I watched all the time. I have the books. I still have the movie. But no, that was an example of like basically when she was talking about how if you want something, it's good that you have to think about it for a long period of time, and the universe doesn't give you what you want instantly when you think about it.
Right.
And that was one of the examples that was used as to
Right.
why it's better that we have to wait for something that we want. So with that being said, that wasn't the example of how law of attraction would work. For example, if I wanted a new car, by using law of attraction, I'm driving my old car. You're supposed to be in that state of like imagination or delusion where I would picture myself driving in my new car to work, by the way, because you actively have to take the action to make sure you're working, make sure you're in that limelight to get the new car. Visualize yourself driving the new car that you want and actually feel how you would feel if you were in that new car. And that's how you bring in the manifestation of it. It doesn't mean someone just
How
went
does
and
it
made
manifest?
the car and
I'm
delivers
sorry.
to it.
I was
I mean,
trying
but
to get us
hang
back on topic.
This
I
is,
feel like
hang
we're
on. I mean,
going.
no, it is on topic. Let me just
Well, it's
finish.
not
I'm
taking
almost done.
anybody's free will.
I'm almost done. Somebody had to manufacture the car. Somebody had to build it. They had to put in the engine. This required engineers. This required all sorts of different labor which went into this car. How would you possibly manifest this without affecting other people's free will, unless it was just what everybody else did, where they went and worked hard for the car? Can you explain that to me, Zena?
What it is you put your law of attraction isn't about instantaneously just wanting something. The universe takes the least resistant path. So if you wanted your new car, what are you going to do? You're going to be visualizing that new car so much that
Yes.
you're going to affect your free will, which means instead of making excuses when your friend calls you and says, "Hey girl, let's go hang out," you're going to be like, "No, actually I picked up a shift." Why? Because your mind is focused on, I have that new car. That new car is mine. It's mine. It's mine. It's mine. So you're not going to be hanging out with people. You're not going to be distracted. You're going to be putting yourself in the position.
So you're just going to work hard for a new car.
That's pretty much what it is. Yes.
So you're just
The
going to work
law of
hard for a
working.
new car. So then there is no actual law of attraction.
Attraction.
There's a law of you focusing on getting a new car, and you get one because you
That
save
is the
up
law of
money.
attraction. It's
Andrew,
attracting that energy that would put you
is-
in the least
Andrew,
resistant.
Yeah, well,
the-
the reason I feel like this is pertinent to this conversation, because I know that you want me to tie it back in, Tom, and I think that's totally fair. The reason that I bring this up is because could you do the same type of visualization for a child if you wanted to, let's say, have a child? Could you just utilize the law of attraction and one will be delivered unto you? Or is it actually that within the law of attraction, that what's going on is that you yourself are just going and doing what every other human being does, and you're manipulating the
hyper-focus.
situation around you in order to have a child?
With hyper focus, yes. You're doing what everybody else is doing with hyper focus and pure intention, which is why it would be stronger versus just
Why would it
like,
be stronger?
because it's hyper focus. You have the actual intention, which means if like everybody else, people have sex, right? People make mistakes. Some people end up pregnant. Some people don't. If you're actively trying to manifest, okay, one, you're going to try to manifest making sure that you're changing who you are as a person to attract the type of person you want to be the father or mother of your child anyway. So there's literally a list of things you have to go through.
That sounds like anybody who wants to have a child would do the exact same thing, Zena.
That's what law of attraction is. We all do
It's just
law of
what
attraction.
everybody does.
Remember, you said you watched the movie and you studied it. That's
Yeah.
what everybody does.
Yeah,
We
but
are
I
all
couldn't figure out
magnets.
how you can
Okay.
actually manifest something without intersecting with somebody else's free will. So, for instance, if you wanted to manifest a child and you wanted to have the perfect guy come to you, how could you wish that into the universe and the universe delivers that without messing with his free will in some way, Zena?
Because that wouldn't mess with somebody else's free will if it's the least resistant path. It's something that you're supposed to be with. Like, for example, obviously you're going to attract the type of person that's wanting the same thing as you actively, that's on that same frequency. That's what, if you watch The Secret, remember you said you did, it's about frequencies and energy. So if I'm trying to attract a certain type of male, right? It's like sonars. It's going to pick up that same frequency, which means that male is actively looking for the same type of frequency, and it would draw two people together, not really necessarily affecting anybody's free will. No.
Okay.
Andrew,
fair enough,
also,
I'm
Andrew,
done.
You get what I'm saying?
Andrew,
You get what I'm
Andrew,
saying?
Hey, listen,
Andrew,
that actually can't make sense, but I'm not
How?
sure.
Andrew,
if
Wait,
I-
it makes perfect sense. It's just about
Andrew,
like
you have to-
positive
Andrew,
thinking and then
you can't
taking
use the
steps to
example
doing
of
what you
the-
want.
Yeah,
Andrew,
then
you have to,
can't-
Andrew, you have to remember.
then there's no actual mythos to it. There's no actual divinity to it. There's no actual magic to it. There's no actual witchcraft to it. It's
That's
just
the
literally
point.
what
It's
every
not-
fucking
it's
body else is
called that.
doing.
That's the whole point. It's literally just called that. There's no
Then,
actual,
but then it's
you don't
not
have to
witchcraft.
write
It's just
standards.
normal Xena. You should just call yourself normal Xena.
No, because I
Yeah,
know
why
I'm a
don't you call
master
yourself
of-
normal Xena? What's the
Hardworking-
distinction
hardworking
between you and a
Xena.
witch? I don't get it.
Hardworking focus, Xena.
What I want. And we're not talking
Yeah,
about other
hardworking
things that I
focus,
do.
Xena.
Wait. Because he wants to be hyper focused on me now. You were talking about that, which I brought up the example in general, which would be law of attraction. Now, if
Yeah.
you want to
That's
talk
the third.
about
That's the
money,
third law of
do I do
logic,
money
right? The
spells?
law of
Do I
attraction.
light candles, do money spells? Do I make potions that might affect somebody's free will to make some money when I go to the club and make
Yeah.
a fucking bag and walk out with 10 bands? Yes, I affected every nigga in that club to look at me and make sure he wanted to throw money
Okay,
on me.
great. Now
Yes,
we're getting somewhere.
that's
So
why I
if you
believe.
can affect
But when it
somebody's
comes to
free will,
attraction,
how is that moral? How is it moral to affect their free will?
To make some money?
Yeah.
You said it was moral. It's not moral to be in the
Are
strip
you
club.
doing
making
so
that
you're
money
doing
anyway.
so wait, are you saying that as a witch you're doing immoral things?
When did I say that? Well, in my beliefs anyway, it's not moral or immoral. It's do as you will, but harm none. So
Who has the will? You know where that comes
You're
from.
not
right?
harming
will
people
harm
by
them.
you're not harming people by making them drink or you drink a potion or they drink a potion or whoever drinks a potion and they give you money they wouldn't ordinarily give you. That's not harmful.
my nigga, this is not hocus pocus. Who is
Yeah,
drinking potions?
That's your example. That was your example.
I said, do I
Can we
make
get this back on track?
Yeah,
I
I
think
gotta-
the idea was supposed to be that he thought she was like
Yeah.
verbatim? I said,
doing some
like my
satanic
own
shit or something,
candles
but
and
she
my
was-
That
own
is
incense.
satanic. She
Okay,
just said that she would
hold
affect
on,
people's
hold on.
free will in a
I
second.
said it
Okay.
people's
Okay.
free will to look at me in the club to be more
Yeah,
Yeah,
attractive.
to give you money.
guys-
Affect their free will to give you money.
Okay. Hold on. Hold on. You guys could set up another conversation. I'm sure it'd be a
That's
good
not
combo.
affecting
But
people with no potions. Ain't nobody
irrelevant.
drinking
I wanted to
potions.
ask you. So earlier you were talking about the fact that you would want, like, if we were going to incentivize people to have kids, you would want to do it through like counseling and crap like that. How would you actually get them to do that without like stigmatizing the inverse of not having kids?
Oh, I would be very open towards people saying I'm happy without kids, without like shitting on them. Like, I think there's a really big narrative that like somebody saying, "Oh, I'm happy without kids," is like somehow shitting on people who choose to not have or choose to have kids, and it's like this weird battle that we have between people who like the idea of having children and growing a family and people who don't like the idea, that we're like constantly fighting each other, but half the time we're not. We're just like, hey, I really enjoy spending time with my child, my son. It's really nice to throw the ball around with him. And then people freak out. And then with the opposite, where there's just people who are like, yeah, you know what, I like being in my 30s and not having to worry about a kid. And then people with kids freak out. So encouraging people to just chill the fuck out and live and let other people live their lives in the ways that they do, but also educate people on, you know, the idea that marriage and shit has pretty positive outcomes on a lot of people's lives and their happiness long term. There's a lot of information to show that, and then just be like, hey, you know, this is an option, but
How would you get that
Don't.
education out, though, is more so my question.
Oh,
Like, how would you get them to start doing it?
Primarily through interpersonal conversation, media depictions, and things like that. I don't think like
How
we
would
could
you
talk
get
about like
media to
government.
start doing that?
How would I encourage media to start
Yeah,
doing
so like
that?
if media
like
right now
us
has,
going
like, a
on social
business.
media and like like shitting on or demonizing weird depictions of like you know, whatever we dislike. So like let's say that there's a depiction of I've seen a couple depictions of like just a just like a white family being demonized as like weird or this like outdated idea, just like a white Christian family, and like that's it. and then they're like this outdated idea. It's like the fuck, who the fuck
The
cares?
dopey
They're just like,
dad, the dopey dumb dad that's never
Aryan
like
race supremacist.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that kind of shit. It's like the fuck, just let them live, bro. They're they're happy with the fuck, right? Shit like that. Be like, if we're demonizing that, be like, hey, the fuck are you doing? And then also just genuinely just having depictions of these people living their lives and being happy, and that's it. Not saying, and you should do this now, because that seems to be the problem. It's like usually that. And let's even talk about the woke stuff, right? The woke stuff is woke stuff.
Fucking
Like
woman prattle.
integrating
Fuck.
people into media, like minorities into media, and then going like, and you guys should like not be racist. Like, that's cringe. Everybody finds that cringe,
Andrew.
right? So what should, sorry, just closing, what should be done is just have cool people, happy people just exist in the ways that we view as culturally positive.
And then Made by Jimbob, pretty much the same question for you. How is it that you would actually get people to have more kids and like incentivize better family structures?
Well, I would get into, I'd like to get into their moral framework. Of course, it doesn't happen in this broad scale. It could, like you said, you can take media, you can present and demonstrate happy families. I think persuasion. I think more men should intervene with other men and not just take this aloof approach, like a libertarian approach where they just, oh, you do you, bro. I don't think men do well with you do you, bro. I think that men actually want that older brother sense, or the father coming in and
Sure.
dropping the hammer down. We enjoy that. I grew up myself with 3 brothers. That certainly helped and guided and informed what I ought and ought not to do. So I think I do agree with the other guy. I forgot your name. Media in the West especially, it's just so dominant. It's like anti-kid, anti-natalist. Every kids are terrible. Kids are horrific. Let's make a movie about a baby that kills the parents. Everything's bad. Everything's a whiny, complainy parents, right? And they people worship like Seth Rogen. It's like that's not a model. That's not a model of a man. So I think there's a cultural issue, and again, the debate tonight actually went mostly to what informs culture, and I think Christianity informs culture in the best possible way, in the most coherent way, and the way that produces the best goods in the world, both externally, sometimes materially, but certainly it produces the most fulfillment for people. And so I think that's a good question, but that's not like some short topical answer we can apply like a Band-Aid. It is a generational thing. And I think for the most part, the panel agreed that we're facing generational issues. And the question is, well, how do you reverse engineer it? Where does it all come from? I believe it's religion, and I think it's particularly Christianity.
I guess for the most part, what I'm trying to ask everybody, and the part that I'm a little bit confused on, or I feel like is missing, is if you are wanting to incentivize something, there has to be something for them at the end of it. Something like, obviously, like having it more in media depictions makes this more normalized, but just normalizing it in and of itself doesn't seem to do the job. There has to be like a real incentive there, like they're going to be praised for this in some way. And then if they get the praise for that, having the inverse of that normally means that it's going to be stigmatized without it. And that's the part that I'm kind of confused about, is I feel like you would have to have both of those social structures in order to actually get the outcome that you're looking for.
We should be more commonly praising people who have kids and not hitting them with that they made the worst decision, in all these ways. So I agree with you. It's just that a lot of that happens person to person. So just like a lot of change happens, it happens at the individual level, one-to-one. You get to know people, you get to influence people. But if that happens at the widest scale, but it's still one-to-one, one-to-few, I think that goes a long way. It's just not a short jump. You don't just jump the brook and you're at the other side. So
Well,
I think shaming too. Shame works too, by the way.
Yeah.
Calling men, total just calling them names for not having kids. I think that goes a long way for men. I don't know about women. I don't know what pressures women exactly, but I do know it works for men generally.
But Tom, too, kind of in response to this, even your premise really points out the problem. which is you're like, at the end of the day, you have to incentivize people. No, you really don't. That's the whole point of the premise here, which is to say that religion is to tell you that you should lack certain things, that certain lack is good, that certain not having of certain material things is actually good for you. It's not bad for you. You should not indulge in every one of the things that you could ever possibly imagine in indulging in. So your premise to even incentivize people kind of shows and demonstrates to me that you don't even understand the foundation of what we're talking about here, which is like, look, we don't necessarily need to incentivize the population by giving them something material at the end of the rainbow. Okay, or by trying to give them something which they're gratified by. Okay, what we can do instead is we can make what's called a mental push, or a propaganda push, even though propaganda has a negative connotation. The reason I use the word is because people are familiar with it. But if we did push really hard that maybe materialism is not the answer to everything, that maybe you shouldn't expect a reward for every action that you do. The only buffer I've ever seen which promotes that is religion. I've never seen anything else. The state can't do it. People in philosophy can't seem to do it. Only religion and theology seems to be able to incentivize people to do things, even if there's not going to be some great material
But I think
reward.
religion is doing what I'm talking about. I think that they do shame people for not doing the right things. I think that they are told to hold people accountable, and I think that there are incentives to be a virtuous person. I think that you are held up and praised for these things, and so I don't think you're taking out the aspects in churches.
Wait, what do you
in
mean?
churches?
In your communities, no? Are you not praised for not abandoning your children?
By
for
who?
being a good father?
No.
By being a
No,
good father?
That's not praised.
It's
What are you
expected.
talking about? It's
Wait,
expected. Yeah,
and
that's
that
normal.
expectation is in contrast to what?
Is in contrast to the cultural push
To
against
shame.
it.
To shame, no?
Well, I think to a degree there's something to be said there, yes, but that still, I think, misses the point, which is, again, it's back to the material assumption of like, you're doing this because of the praise. What religion is trying to hang on. What religion's trying to promote is the opposition. You're not doing it because it's the praise. You're doing it because it's the moral correct thing.
And it makes you feel good to do the moral correct thing.
No, you don't always feel good.
Sometimes it doesn't. Yeah, sometimes it doesn't make you feel good to do what's right.
No. This is because you're confusing something.
No, I'm not confusing
okay, because you're confusing something. Because the reason why, because I was religious too. I grew up religious, and I actually do want to get to a separate part about y'all's prescription being religion. But the reason why we ultimately get to doing these things is because we find it more satisfactory to be religious in this case than the opposition, which is to not be religious. So I'm going to go with these beliefs because I find it more satisfactory to be religious, even if it's something that harms me in the short term and shit like this, right? What you're essentially talking about is incurring a short-term penalty or maybe even a long-term penalty in exchange for fulfilling a desire to continuously practice your faith. That is what you're doing.
The problem with this position is not only is it unfalsifiable, but it's actually silly. So how could a person demonstrate to you that they did something, even knowing that that was their duty and it would not be good for them? You could always make the rejoinder, well, you must have thought it would be good for you or you wouldn't have done it, but you can't demonstrate any evidence for that.
You would just have to be projecting that onto the person.
You're not. There's no evidence that you could possibly give me for that, dude.
No. So I feel like you're missing my point. Okay?
Well, then what's the point that I'm missing?
That's what I was just about to get to. So the whole point of what I'm trying to say is that ultimately you have a goal that you are trying to achieve. Okay. And I understand that goal has self-sacrifice built into it, but there's many different goals outside of even religion.
To you
again, you're going to keep interrupting.
This
so
is an important
hold
point
on. No. I'm going to finish.
You can interrupt for clarification. What is self-sacrifice?
Self-sacrifice, right? In this context also applies to different areas that are outside of religion as well. I will explain what self-sacrifice is. There are doing things that you don't want to do, that you don't gain pleasure in, that you may not even gain material benefit for, that might positively affect either your outcomes in some specific way, other people's outcomes, or maybe a belief that you hold. And maybe it's an ideological belief. You die for something that you consider to be good, for
And
example.
so why would you
right?
find that to be satisfactory, more satisfactory than the alternative, except that you're just intuiting that for everybody else?
The reason why is because you're doing it.
What?
So what satisfaction are you getting
It's
right now
again
in making an
circular.
argument?
No. If you wouldn't do it, the reason why you're doing it is because you are making an active choice. The reason why you do things is because you're weighing your other options, and you've decided that this is your the one that you want to go with. No?
Yeah, that doesn't answer my question. How do you know that the person finds that more satisfactory to the alternative, except that
Because
you
they
just want
didn't
it to be true?
Because they didn't pick the alternative.
Why would that matter? That's then this would
Because
be in opposition
that
to what you
tells
just called
me-
self-sacrifice.
No, it
So
isn't.
this intuition here, the contradiction is, if the intuition is that self-sacrifice is actually the thing that you want the most, how could that be self-sacrifice?
Because you are sacrificing your own well-being in exchange for an idea.
Yeah, but you want it, so it's not really self-sacrifice.
I disagree. I completely disagree. Wanting something doesn't mean that you can't What? I want the betterment of my child and my family and my community, and I sacrifice my time. I sacrifice my physical health to be able to do that. And that doesn't matter because that
So
doesn't
why
take
don't
away
you
from it
just,
because
like-
I want it.
But what if, well, wait a second. If you didn't want it, let's just say like you walked away from the whole family, right?
Yeah.
Could you find more satisfaction in that?
Me personally? Are you
No,
talking
no,
about in
just
general?
anybody.
Yeah, sir.
They
Somebody
could,
in
right?
theory could. Yeah, somebody in
Yeah,
theory could.
or they couldn't, right?
Yeah, I would
could you
find,
make a
probably
judgment-
most people. I would
Yeah,
say.
how could
probably would.
how could you make the judgment value other than you think so? You couldn't really demonstrate that.
The reason why is because they weighed the options for themselves and they picked the one that they went
Yeah,
with.
demonstrate it. Demonstrate that's true.
What, demonstrate that they
Understand-
weighed options and
Relevant,
that's
I don't
why
think you
they
understand.
picked what they
I don't
did?
think you understand the problem that Andrew's posing here. You're saying that you're basically almost making the kid not kin's argument. It's kind of like a determinist view. Actually, it's like everything you do is just because you wanted to
You
do
want
it.
to do it, yeah.
Andrew's saying
Well,
it's unfalsifiable because you'd have to assume whatever you did the opposite of, or you didn't do something. Let's say an inaction itself would then be under your view. Something you desired to do. So there would never be anything you
Yeah,
could point
so,
to that
yeah,
wasn't a desire, actually.
And as I
Never.
stated when Kidnot Kin brought it up, right? It is something that is true. Yes, everything that you do, you're weighing options against other things. I can still have self-sacrifice inside of that system. The idea that like you can't have self-sacrifice in that system, right? For instance, everybody here can agree that we might want the betterment for a better life for our kids. And do we not sacrifice time, maybe our physical health and things like that for our child?
That's
but
not
we
in
still
dispute,
want it.
though. So that's not
Wait.
really in dispute. What's in dispute is how do you know that the person who's doing this, that they're only doing it because that's the most satisfactory thing they could have done? That's where you are
Sorry.
intuiting on us.
I'm not making the claim that it's the most satisfactory thing they could do. What I'm saying is that that's the most satisfactory thing that they thought of to do, that they came to the conclusion of
but
doing.
you're still projecting.
That's
that
why they
onto
did
them,
it.
That's why.
Right,
they did
you
it.
still
You
are.
wouldn't
No matter
know that
what, you're
that's
still
why they did
projecting it onto
Yeah.
them.
But wait,
In other words, it would
hold
still
on,
apply.
hold on. I gotta
It would
ask.
still apply.
Wait, hold on. I gotta ask because I feel like what he's saying makes sense. What do you guys think is the other option? If they do the thing, are they not choosing to do the thing?
No,
or
I think
like
that
what
you
is-
can do things which are counterintuitive to you.
You can, but you're choosing to do those things, right?
Well, I'm not. It's not the option here is not about choice. Choice is not what's in dispute. Rather, his projection that you made the choice because that was what it was innate that you must do. And it's like, otherwise,
When did I say that?
That's not what he
When did
said.
I say that?
I'm going to
Hold
give you your
on.
exact
What-
words. I'm going to
let me
give you your
an example.
exact words. Your exact words were, when I asked you this question, how do you know that was the most satisfactory option? Your words were, because you did it.
Yeah, so hold on. Let me give you an example.
no,
She's
it's
saying
not
that like
that's
it's based
the
on the
most
scenario.
satisfactory.
So if I choose to do heroin in this moment, I am choosing to do heroin based on some sort of goal for some sort of satisfaction. It may not be the best outside of that. I may not be considering all options. It may hurt me in a bunch of other areas. But at the moment that I choose to do heroin, I'm choosing to do it based on a specific goal that is looking for a specific type of
Absolutely.
satisfaction.
I don't dispute this. So, but
Distinction
what
between
about the
will
counter?
and
What
will
about
and-
the counter? What about the counter to this, which is you really, really, really want to fucking do the heroin, but you don't, and it makes you
will.
fucking
Why
sick to
don't
your
you?
stomach, and it makes you throw up all over the place, and all of this stuff that seems very counterintuitive, yet you do it anyway, right? This is my point.
Wait,
is
well,
that
why do you
for,
do
for
it?
you, for you
Why do
to
you do it?
say,
Why
for
did you choose not
I'm
to?
trying to explain. Shut up. For you to
ahead.
say, like he just did, the reason that you made that choice is because it's innate. You didn't have a choice. The reason I know it's the most satisfactory is because you wouldn't have made the choice otherwise. You also have to bite the bullet and say then the only reason that people commit suicide is because it's the most satisfactory. They wouldn't have done it. It's
for
absurd.
them in
That's
that
what they
moment,
think.
they
No.
viewed it as their only option. Yeah,
No.
for them in
No,
that
hold on.
moment, they
This
viewed
is
it
a
as their
determinist view.
they viewed
This is
it they
this is
viewed it as
terrible.
their only position
listen,
in that
the
moment.
reason-
That's what the reason.
Let me
why
make
they
it
did
easier
yeah.
for your problem. This is much easier. If what you're saying is true, then what you're arguing right now is determined by satisfactory. So you wouldn't know any other option. You wouldn't know any other option to
I
argue,
personally,
right?
I personally am
Nothing else for you to do.
I
You must do
I-
this conversation. You have
Wait,
no
let him-
choice.
let him answer.
I personally am a determinist. Yeah.
So you came to the conclusion that you're a determinist, but you were determined to come to that conclusion, right? So you didn't come to the conclusion.
Yeah,
right?
it was already predetermined for you.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, so all you're doing is
Wait,
rejecting.
Hold
the
on.
will.
Wait. I want to
Not
understand
complicated.
even from your guys' worldview because you're laughing. Is because I
is
guess
funny.
we gotta get into this. If can God not tell what the future is? Can God not
God-
ordain what the future
You're gonna
is?
use
You've
Calvinist
already
Yes, I'm
predeterminism?
gonna ask you the question.
Yeah,
Can
no, it's
you-
fine. If you want to use
can
Calvinist
God-
predeterminism, we can do that.
Wait, can God ordain the future? Yes or no?
Yeah. Well, God can see into the future, but He has chosen to give you free will.
Okay, so if God says you are going to have a conversation at 3 p.m. on August 5th at
Mhm.
2032,
Sure.
are you going to deterministically go throughout your life all the way up until you have that conversation?
Well, I don't.
Are you
I wanna
going to
answer
be
this
can
in
you
good faith. I'm
deviate
trying to
can you
think about
deviate
this.
can you deviate from that course?
Generally, the answer that I
So
always
the-
gave
the
when I was
conversation
religious is
will
that he knows
happen.
he
So
knows
hang
the
on.
actions
So hang on.
that you're
The
going to take.
conversation will happen. I don't know what you mean exactly by the deviate from the course, but yes, the conversation will happen. If it's predetermined by
can
God,
God-
and He says it's going to happen, yes, it'll happen.
Well, just
So
real quick,
can
let-
God
let me give the
predetermine
answer,
every
'cause,
one of your actions throughout your entire life?
irrelevant. The answer that they
Could.
generally give
The
is
answer
that
would
he
be-
knows what you're going to do. He knows,
Yeah,
he
okay,
knows
but
your
hang on.
So if
actions,
God-
and so
if
you
want to
still
follow
have
this to
free
the end,
will.
so that he understands the distinction here between divine command and him saying, absent divine command, that he's a determinist, which makes no sense. So even
Okay,
if we
so
follow
no,
the Calvinist view to the
I'm
end-
curious if God can
Mhm.
understand all of the actions that you do throughout your entire life. Do you
Yes.
have free will?
Yes.
How?
Because you have what's called a timeless space distinction. So if God is timeless and He can see in all instances at all times, He will always know what's going to happen before it happens, but that doesn't mean He needs to affect your free will to do so.
Okay, if he knows all of the things that you are going to do throughout your
Mhm.
life and you cannot deviate from them, how do you have free will? How is it
Because this-
independent?
because
or
the
how is it
objection-
independent of previous
Yeah, so the
factors?
objection here is based around timelessness. You don't know what timelessness means. So
If it is
you're
timelessness,
operating-
then he couldn't know the things that you will do, but only the things that you could do.
Right. So that's one argument. I take a different argument, but I think that that'll suffice. As we're talking about this, though, you as the determinist now need to explain how that's a mechanism for all human beings absent God.
Me personally,
Yes.
I believe in physical interactions, and I don't believe that matter can be created or
So
destroyed.
do you
given our
not? So you don't have a
understandings.
belief then? You don't have a belief then, right?
I do have a belief. That is
No,
my
there's
belief.
no
He
you.
just told you what it
There's
was.
no you. There's a mechanism that has a brain that produces
That
sound out of a
determines it.
mouth hole, right?
Correct.
You
Yes.
don't come to beliefs, right?
No, I do through the mechanisms
you
throughout
can't.
my
It's
out my
determined.
mouth.
So there's
hole.
no you. There's no you. You
There
are
is
the
a me.
mechanism.
There is
No,
a
there's-
me.
But no. The distinction you, in your view, would be a body that's purely physical, right?
Correct.
So the I, is that physical?
Yes, I am physical. Me? Yes,
no,
I am physical.
No. The I, the mind, the I, the being.
Yes,
that
I believe
phys-
that is physical.
So the mind is physical.
Yes, my mind is
What-
physical.
okay, so where in your body is your mind, and what is it made out of?
It is a collection of neurons that are firing inside of my brain to be able to present to me a conscious experience.
So your mind is a bunch of activity, right?
Correct.
Okay. So if your mind is a bunch of activity, then it's just your brain, right?
We are looping, but yes.
Okay.
Okay. So if it's just your brain, and your brain does something lawfully, correct?
I'm assuming you mean in accordance with the laws of logic, and the answer would be yes.
No, not logic, actually. Physics, mostly, in chemistry.
Oh, sure. Yes.
Because you don't have access to logic, because logic is immaterial. And so what you have is a machine called your brain and body. And whatever your machine is doing is as mechanistically producing an outcome, right? That's always determined to be the outcome, just like you're arguing with choices, right? So if that's true, just like I used on Kid down here, all knowledge for you, you can't know anything based on your view. Do you agree?
What do you mean? What are you describing as knowing?
You can't have knowledge. You're just a mechanism. You're a deterministic mechanism. What knowledge
I know
could you
things.
possibly?
I know that you're sitting in a dark room. I know that he's sitting with a green background. What are you referring to as knowledge?
Isn't that determined in your view to see those
It's
things?
determined. It's
Correct.
not knowledge.
It is
It's already
determined, but
determined.
it is knowledge.
That's the
So we need to. So now we're having a descriptive difference over what knowledge
No,
is.
it's not
So we can get.
descriptive.
That's knowledge. Any way you describe knowledge,
This is-
I'll promise
we are
you, it's going to not be possible under your view. Describe it any way you want. Define knowledge.
Sure.
We talked the three things of logic again.
No. This is important.
What for me to describe knowledge?
No,
Yeah, just
define
what is
knowledge.
knowledge?
It is
Just
to-
whatever it is.
It is to have a grasp or an understanding of a concept.
Okay, like a proposition, maybe? Would you reduce it to like a proposition?
For the sake of this conversation, sure.
Okay, so you make a proposition as mechanism 1, and Andrew over here is mechanism 2, and the rest of us on the panel are the observers, but in your view, we're also mechanisms. So if mechanism 1, you make a proposition, and Andrew, mechanism 2, makes a proposition, the rest of the panel as mechanisms, if we're all predetermined completely to come to any conclusion we came to, there's no real thought process, there's no real weighing options or evaluating claims. If that's the case, how do we have access to knowledge if every node that's interacting is just interacting with physicality?
Wait, why can't
what's
thought
the
processes
methodology?
be determined?
Yeah,
Why
how
can't
can it
thought
be
processes
determined?
be determined?
What's that?
Well,
Why cannot thought processes be determined?
Well, in your view, it is. We're granting that they are.
Yeah,
I'm asking you, how
but
do you-
you're saying that it's not possible. Why?
yeah. So he's
no, it's
making
not
the
possible.
example right now. He's saying that if you have, if he's a mechanism and I'm a mechanism, we have a disagreement. All the audience is now mechanisms. This was predetermined. How do we have knowledge of who's right, who's wrong?
What method? If it's
What method
mechanical.
do we use?
Why
with
wouldn't
a
there be?
mechanical method?
Why wouldn't there be like a cause and effect and interaction between two different processes?
If there, even if there
why
was a
can't there
cause
be
and effect,
interaction
how do you know
between
which cause and effect is correct? How do you have knowledge?
We would use our better reasoning to be able to understand the same way.
It's determined.
I think
it's
the
determined.
issue. No, I think the issue.
Determined.
Yeah, it is determined, but that.
So then you
can
don't have
still exist.
reasoning. Then you just
You
have a
can
mechanism.
have reasoning. You can.
Yeah,
have
it's just a
Independent
mechanism.
of mechanism.
Yeah.
not independent of mechanisms, but you can still have reasoning.
No. Reason is
It's a
smoke coming
mechanism.
out of a machine.
Yeah, it's a
That's
mechanism.
all reasoning is to you.
Yeah.
Yes.
It doesn't-
I encourage you to abandon the view because you do have knowledge irrelevant. You actually have some pretty good points. I can tell you have a thinker. I can tell you have a past, present, and a future that you conceive of. I can tell that you care about people. These are not particulars or of mechanisms because they don't produce these things. Okay?
Yeah, in other words, he's saying you
So
can't really
if
be
your
a
question is
determinant.
no, if your question is whether or not we operate in society as if we are not deterministic, the answer is obviously yes.
That's not what he's
However,
asking.
Okay, well, that's ultimately the only answer that I can give you to your statements.
Well, I'm
is
saying
that we
the opposite was
operate
true.
in the world that
if
way.
the opposite was true and your view is true, you couldn't know it. In addition to that, you couldn't know anything based on our example. If you could know something, one of you could tell me if there's an opinion A is made and opinion B is made by another mechanism, and the observer who's selecting the better of the opinions, better of the propositions, needs some sort of independent reasoning process that's outside of determined mechanistic effects. And you don't
Otherwise,
have
how
one.
would you know? Yeah.
Okay,
how
Why
would
would
you
it
know?
have to be
Real
outside
quick,
of determined
hold on.
mechanistic facts? That doesn't.
Just real quick.
What?
We have gone like way over, so
Yeah.
I wanted to give everybody a
enough.
chance to do their shout outs. If anybody wants to stay after and continue having this conversation, I'm completely open to people sticking around. But real quick, I want to let everybody go around, shout themselves out, and give a closing statement on the topic. So we'll go backwards from where we started before. Xena, if you'll go first, please.
Okay, 1 second. I'm so sorry. I am so sorry.
What game are you playing?
Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Let me walk out of this fucking zone. I just gotta be in a safe zone. So
We can start with
One of the
Jimbob.
better of the
Okay,
Assassin's
go
Creed.
ahead.
Why are we doing closing though? I thought we were still continuing the argument.
Yeah,
I
we
was
can
saying
still
we're
go
going to
after
do closing,
closings.
and then we'll let everybody stick around who wants to. I just want to make sure if anybody needs to leave, they have a chance whenever they need to. But you guys can all stick around after we do closings.
Oh, okay. So I'm Xena the Witch. I stream on Kick, Xena the Witch, Twitch, Xena _the Witch, and my Twitter is Xena the Witcher, and so is my Instagram. Pretty much anywhere you find me, it's just Xena the Witch. That's it. I play video games. And I
Any
like to talk
closing
about
thoughts
them.
on the topic?
Well, I think we kind of derailed completely
Mhm.
away from the whole
Yeah.
whether or not women are happy when having children or not.
Mhm.
So my thoughts, I mean, I guess for the most part, I think that's because we needed something to really talk about since we already agreed that women are more happy when having children. So we just derailed to like the specifics behind family matters and
Mhm.
religion, which I mean is still an interesting topic. I like it. I like hearing everybody's take. So
Okay.
and I like
Thank you.
listening.
Jimbob.
All right. Yeah. Well, the question of happiness, obviously, we distinguished between happiness and fulfillment. I hope a little bit because I think that's an important distinction. Happiness being mostly temporary, and fulfillment being something different that includes happiness, but it also includes sacrifice and hardship, and that's all encapsulated in the life of a person. So the question is, well, what is the life of a person? Absent a family, I don't think it exists. The family itself, the values of the family, does that exist absent religion? It does not. So the question is, if we broadly say, well, religion informs all of these things anyway, we might as well skip to which religion is the best. Really, I mean, I think for the most part. Excuse me.
Wait, just
No,
let him
I
finish his
understand.
statements.
I was gonna wait till you finish first.
Let's finish closing
Is this a-
statements, and then we'll get back into it.
Okay.
Go ahead.
It's actually, it may have seemed like a detour, but I actually think the last bit was important because if the argument here is what should we do? How do we make people happier? What's happiness? If happiness is just an illusion because we're all just mechanisms running around, then debating is an illusion. So it's nonsense. So if there's ever a chance to sway someone's opinion, which doesn't exist under a determinist view, it's just a thing coming out of a mouth. To get them to reject it, particularly you, Irrelevant, I think you're the prime candidate at letting go of that ridiculous view, and I hope you do. I hope it's at the, because you found a woman and you start making a family and you realize when you hold your baby for the first time, you're not going to teach them that they're just a mechanism. Because they matter and there's more to us as human beings. And it's like Andrew said, it's not because we're not strictly material. Our happiness will not be given by strictly material means. Not that anyone argued that tonight. I'll give you credit for that.
Where
You
can
guys
people
didn't
find you?
argue. Made by Jimbob at YouTube and Made by Jimbob on Instagram.
Awesome. Kid not kin.
Yeah, I still believe that the if you want to incentivize people to make more babies because you believe that it's going to make a better society, better economic system, I think the best way that you can do that is to better the conditions that parents are in, so that people will not see being a parent as such a burden, and that would go a really, really long way. But yeah, I am Kid Knockin'. You can find me on Twitch, YouTube, and Kick.
Awesome. And then Base FCZ.
That is my name on YouTube, Bass FZZ. I guess my final thoughts is, I guess, the same as the first, but maybe I'll sprinkle a little bit more. I'm a huge fan of virtue, huge fan of having strong moral character, and I honestly think that the problems here, I actually think that the financial issue that a lot of people talk about with them not having kids is mostly an excuse. I think it's about virtue. I think a lot of these people honestly more lean on being selfish, not really being considerate of the reality that is children do not remain children forever. They grow up, they become people. I'm an adult, you are all adults, we all be. And I think that honestly, you're going to be happier having a family, having these people, if you raise them, if you invest in them, and you treat them well. Is every person going to get that? We all know that's not going to be the case. But what ought we should do, since we like saying that, I think we ought to focus on building moral character and recognizing that even though children might be expensive, children do not remain children. They grow up, they become people, and you can love them and they can love you back. They're just little people that get bigger. So I think we should focus on encouraging more children how to do so. I'm with Irrelevant here. I would like to make more stories, produce more movies. I would like to push out and show love, kindness, and consideration, and encourage men and women to work together as well. So, those are my
Awesome.
thoughts.
Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah, I'm actually happy to stick around for a little overtime this evening. I don't usually do that often, but I don't get a chance to come in and spar with Tom as much as I'd like. By the way, Bass, is it Bass FZZ?
Mm-hmm.
Right? I really enjoyed seeing you again tonight. I felt like you made some very compelling, I basically down the road, maybe I can have you back on the Crucible. We'll talk a little more, but
I'd love it.
yeah, it was great. It was great to talk to you again, man. I'm glad to see you back. I thought you had some very compelling things to say. By the way, to the other side of the panel, with Irrelevant, and then let's see. I can't see your name in Discord, so forgive me, sir.
Kid, not King.
You can just say Kid, yeah.
Yeah, Kid. Okay. Just so you guys know, I don't take any of this personally, and I've never taken any. I don't take stuff like this personally. So I'd like to thank both of you for coming out to the panel tonight. I appreciate it very much, and then of course Jimbob. I appreciate the spirited discussion and the spirited debate. Ultimately, I'll say that I didn't find the refutation of either of you to be very compelling. And I would actually still like to discuss this without getting sidetracked, where maybe we can do it without such a large panel and have a much better good faith exchange. So I'm happy to stick around. Appreciate it very much. And then down to the witch at the bottom, I think you should abandon the identity of witch, to be honest with you, because it seems like you might have a better moral paradigm than that. And I'll leave it at that.
Awesome. And then Irrelevant.
Right. So the last, there was one other thing that I wanted to get to that we didn't quite get to because we were talking a lot about the knowledge and reasoning and things like that. And the thing that I wanted to get to is it seems like a lot of the ideas that we share and we have in common are things that we would like society to be guided towards. I feel like it's a bit betrayed by pushing a specific religion as the a thing that our government should be hoisting onto the public. And the reason why is because we're going to miss people who are either agnostic, atheist, or maybe just a different religion. Instead, pushing multiple different very positive cultural ideas and norms that we already agree on is going to, I think, be the best fix, because that gets even non-religious people into that mix and can feel a lot more welcome with these ideas. And just unfortunately, the way that things are, well, unfortunately, I'm sorry for the people who are religious on this panel, is the idea that there's so many people that are just never going to be religious. There's just nothing you can do about it, but there is something we can do.